ओम विष्णु कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंचाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ग्रंथराज भागवताम की जय। सर्वशास्त्रादि पीयूष वैदिक सत्फल सर्व सिद्धांत रत्नाध्य सर्वलोकैक दृक्प्रद सर्व भागवत प्राणा श्रीमद् भागवतो प्रभु कलिद्वंतो तितादित्य श्री कृष्णा परिवर्तिता परमानंद पाठाय प्रेम वर्ष अक्षराय ते सर्वद सर्व सेवाय श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तुते। मद एक बंधु मद संगिन मद गुरु मन महादन मन निष्ठारक मन भाग्य मन आनंद नमोस्तुते। असाधु साधु तादाइन अचिति नोत ताकर हाना मुंचा कदाचिन मा प्रेम न रित कंथयोस्पर। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायण नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जय मुदीरे। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्टिकी। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Thank you all so much, dear devotees. Thank you for joining. Okay. So let's start. We are going to continue with chapter 4 of the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter title Process of Creation. Okay. So should we start off with any realizations or any points anyone would like to share from the previous session?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. We were reading third chapter. I think we were reading a little ahead, so chapter 4 we started. In that it talks about, the transcendental knowledge. When read or heard, it goes like an injection intravenous into the blood, and it impacts on the soul. So that was a beautiful point.
Thank you, Mati. That's actually the first verse in the purport Prabhupada actually makes a point. How this transcendental, not the first verse, sorry, there's in text 5, I think.
5, yeah.
Text 5. Yeah. Thank you, Mati. This actually Prabhupada mentioned this in the previous chapter also. And it's come again in this chapter. Thank you. Very nice. Anyone else?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mati.
Yeah, in second canto chapter 4, the 3/4 text, they're mentioning here in different like acharyas. Prabhupada ji quoted different acharyas, that slokas and how like renunciation Parikshit Maharaj did, and so it's very helpful, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Madhavendra Puri, how he explains. So I like that one.
That purport, actually, Prabhupada gives different examples to establish the point and how,
Yes.
like in the text, in the, okay, I'll come to that section because I'll just quickly summarize the first few verses. Okay, Mati, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll come back to that point. Yeah, anyone else? One more person? Can you have?
I think the last line, Roji, of the fifth purport, fourth chapter, the crucial test of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is that one should get positive enlightenment by such a monk.
Yes, thank you. That's like the last point we discussed in last session, right? Positive enlightenment. Thank you. Okay, so let's continue. So briefly, up to this point in chapter 4, we covered the first 5 verses. So after hearing what what Sukadeva Goswami has actually narrated in the first 3 chapters of the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj, who was already absorbed in thought of Krishna from his from when he was in the womb, he actually further concentrated his mind on Krishna. And why did he do that? Particularly, he was inspired by the shloka where it says, Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. And he said, now I have to be more tivra in my concentration on Krishna. So the first verse of this chapter actually starts off by saying that how Maharaj Parikshit applied his concentration faithfully upon Lord Sri Krishna. And in particular, the word satim, we discussed that satim means existing and chaste. That it was already there, but he further intensified, he made it more tivra, his concentration on Krishna. And then in text number 2 is actually 2, 3, and 4 actually talks about this point that how Maharaj Parikshit, when he was cursed, he actually left everything, his kingdom, his wife, his property, everything he left. But now it is talking of a second level of detachment, which is like an internal detachment, right? So text 2 actually talks of Atma, Jaya, Suta, Agara, then Pashu, Dravina, Bandushu, Raje. All these 8 different items. He said, then he could actually give them up. Avikale. Avikale means without being disturbed. And how is this attachment? It actually says it is viruddham. It is actually this mamatam, the affinity or this attachment to these things is actually viruddham. It's very deeply rooted. To give up all this is actually not easy. But Parikshit Maharaj could do it without any difficulty. And why was it that without any disturbance he could do it? Avikale he could do it because he was wholehearted, because he had wholehearted attraction for Krishna, and hence he was not disturbed, right? Even when he gave up all these things. Right? Okay. And then further, so Prabhupada in the purport talks about attachment to household paraphernalia and attachment to Lord Krishna. They don't go together. If you're attached to household paraphernalia, how can you develop your attachment to Krishna? And Prabhupada makes a point that the expert devotee can turn everything by attitude of service. Our attitude of enjoyment has to be transformed to an attitude of service, right? So yes, we have this property, we have household paraphernalia, but you have to convert everything to an attitude of service to Lord Shri Krishna. And the example that Prabhupada gives in that section is that of who? The Pandavas. Prabhupada gives the example of the Pandavas and say like how the Pandavas, though they had royal kingdom, but they could actually transform everything, dovetail everything to the service of Lord Shri Krishna. Right? Okay. And right. So how can that dovetailing process happen? Right. So that's a crucial point. We often make this, right? We have to dovetail everything in Krishna service. But how will that dovetailing happen? What is the key point?
Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha. We
Yes.
give everything to Krishna, whatever we have.
Yes. So that is the point of dovetailing, that we see everything in relationship with Krishna and hence we use everything. But how will that mood actually come? So Prabhupada actually makes the point that the main point, how that dovetailing will come, is one has to hear about Krishna, right? So Prabhupada makes, in that purport, he makes a point, one has to seriously hear Srimad Bhagavatam, right? And by that hearing, one may be able to lose all affinities for material things and then dovetail that in the service of Allah. So it all starts with the process of hearing. Only when we hear Krishna Katha, then we can dovetail things. We can understand how everything is related to Krishna, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha, and we can actually do Yukta Vairagya, right? But that will come only when we hear, right? So the hearing is very important. And then we talked of different levels of hearing, right? Last time, like where we hear when we have doubts, then when we hear when our faith increases, but still we have attachments, and then when we hear when we are just, after chanting, when we are hearing them, we are just like a sponge, we are absorbing everything, and finally when we hear, we are hearing with prema, right? So Parikshit Maharaj was at the highest stage of hearing, where he was hearing with love of Krishna. Okay. And then further in text 3 and 4, it talks of further renunciation. It talks of how Parikshit Maharaj gave up dharma, artha, kama, right? So the verse actually says Traivargikam. Traivargikam means these three items of dharma, artha, and kama, right? So he actually further renounced all these things. So we discussed this point last time, that why Parikshit Maharaj is a devotee from his birth, then why would he engage in these activities of dharma, artha, kama? And we said, like, he was the emperor. So as an emperor, he had to set the standard for the other citizens. So not all the citizens were pure devotees. So he had to do certain activities of the karma kanda ritual, but his mood of performing those activities was just like what was described for Bharat Maharaj. We discussed it last time, right? Bharat Maharaj in the 5th canto, in chapter 7, in text 5 and 6, it describes that even Bharat Maharaj, with the same point, that he was the emperor and he had to perform all these karmakandya rituals. But while he was performing everything, his consciousness was that completely, he was thinking that, yes, when oblations are made to different demigods, then all those demigods are actually parts of Krishna, limbs of Krishna. Right? So that was his consciousness. And second, the results of all the sacrifices, he wasn't, whatever result was there for the karma kanda, he wasn't looking forward to that. He said, anyway, the result is coming from Krishna. So anyway, we have to offer it to Krishna. So that was his consciousness. And he was not the enjoyer, and he did not consider himself the performer of sacrifice. And he said that everything, all yagyas are finally meant for the satisfaction of Krishna. Samsiddha Haritoshana. So in that way, Bharat Maharaj's bhakti was pure. So that one very interesting point is made, that when we are worshipping each demigods independently, separately, then that destroys that ananya aspect of bhakti. But when we are approaching the demigods as limbs of Krishna, seeing everyone in relationship to Krishna, then that ananya bhakti is still maintained. Right? And we need to come to a stage of ananya devotion. Okay. So that was text 3 and 4. And in that purport, there's a long purport. Prabhupada gives example of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rupa Goswami, Madhavendra Puri, Prahlad Maharaj. And 4 examples. And Prabhupada, what is he making the point with these 4 examples? That yes, different items, different processes which are there in the Karma Kanda ritual, or further, which are there in one sadhana. He particularly talks about Madhavendra Puri, where he actually says, Sandhya Vandam Badram Astu Bhavato Bhos Nana Tubhyam Namo. That all these different items of bathing 3 times every day, doing 3 times Gayatri, all these things, right? What is Madhavendra Puri saying? I actually offer obeisances to all of you, and please forgive me because I cannot do all of you anymore. Why? Because I'm so absorbed in Krishna that itself, smaram, it says smaram agham harami tad. So I'm so absorbed in Krishna that itself I think is sufficient for me. I don't need to do all of these. So you all please forgive me, right? So we made this point that for us, all these items, like, yes, we have to do our Gayatris for those who are second initiated. We have to, maintain the cleanliness, bathing 3 times a day if possible. All those rules we have to follow because we have not come to the stage of love of Krishna. But when we have come to a stage of love of Krishna, then we understand that the purpose of all these is to come to a stage. And if you're already at that stage, then we know that these, if they are helping our devotion to Krishna grow, then we'll accept it. Otherwise, it may not be needed. So that's one point. And the second point, even though someone may be at that higher stage of love of Godhead, he may still do these things to actually set the right example for others to follow. You know, so those 2 points are there. So four examples Prabhupada gives, and all four actually makes the point that one, the purpose of all these, you know, activities is finally to come to the stage of love of Krishna. And one already has love of Krishna, one need not perform these things, right? So that's the point. Okay. Now, text 5. Oh, yeah. So in text 5, after describing Parikshit Maharaj's internal state of renunciation, now Parikshit Maharaj speaks and he glorifies Sukadev Goswami. He glorifies the speech of Sukadev Goswami. He glorifies Sukadev Goswami himself, and he actually talks of the result of hearing from Sukadev Goswami. Right? So how does he glorify the speech? He says, Samichina Vachaha. What you have spoken is perfectly right. So Parikshit Maharaj is also a pure devotee of Krishna. So he could see that what Sukadev Goswami has said is perfectly right. So he's glorified. It is all what you said is Samichina, is perfectly right. And then he glorifies Sukadev Goswami himself. And says, yes, it's perfectly right. Why? Because you are Sarva Gyasa, that one who knows everything. How is it possible that the spiritual master can know everything?
He's representative of Krishna and he has realized Krishna in his heart.
Yes, because Krishna knows everything. So whatever is required for the spiritual master to know, Krishna reveals him in the core of the heart. And that spiritual master has direct connection with Krishna. He's so close to Krishna. So whatever is required, like a disciple may come and, you know, ask a particular question, but the spiritual master may know his underneath intention and actually answer that question. And why does he know that? Because Krishna has revealed that point in the core of our heart. Right? So the spiritual master, that's why he's a transparent medium of Krishna. And Krishna knows everything. So Krishna reveals whatever is required for the growth of the disciple in the heart of the spiritual master. Right? So Sarvagyasa. So he knows everything, right? And then the second quality of Sukadev Goswami is Anaga. Anaga we read in the first canto, second chapter also, where Suta Goswami describes Sukadev Goswami when he's offering obeisances. He says he is Anaga, right? So similarly, the word Anaga comes here. That means one who is sinless, right? Without any material contamination. Because he knows everything and there's no material contamination, hence whatever he's spoken is actually perfectly right. And what is the result of hearing this? Sri Radhe Mataji made that point. When you hear from a person who has these qualities, who is Anaga and who is actually Sarvagyasa, who's directly in touch with Krishna, then that potency of hearing is so powerful that it is actually just like, it is not like a small tablet one takes and give it like a small effect. It is like taking an injection. As soon as the injection is given, throughout the body, immediately that whole substance is spread. So similarly, there's hearing from a devotee having these qualities from a pure devotee is so powerful that all the darkness of ignorance is actually at once washed away, right? At once washed away. And that's how Parikshit Maharaj is actually glorifying the words of Sukadev Goswami. Okay. Prabhupada in the purport talks about, did we discuss this purport? Yeah, we discussed this. Okay, so Prabhupada talk about that how Maharaj Parikshit is actually giving his practical experience of what happens when we hear from a pure devotee. Right? So we should also think, like we have been hearing Harikatha from the word of Srila Prabhupada and so many Vaishnavas, we are hearing Harikatha. What is the practical experience that we are hearing? What we are experiencing? What is it? Someone wants to say?
The transformation of the heart when we hear.
Okay, so that is transformation of the heart. Okay, let's go more deeper. What is our practical experience when we are, we have been hearing Harikatha for years. So what is our practical experience with that?
gradual disappearance of ignorance.
Yeah, so all the misconceptions, okay, like so before coming in contact with ISKCON, we may have like so many misconceptions of like maybe so many demigods, and we don't know who is supreme, or we may be attached to someone like India. There's also so many superstitions, and so many things are there, so many concepts we may have heard while growing up. But as we are hearing the pure Harikatha, all that ignorance in our heart is actually destroyed. And now there's so much clarity. Right now, if someone challenges me, okay, this person is God and this is also God, we say, no, we know for sure that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. And further, we know that Vrajeshwar Nandana Krishna is the supreme personality of Krishna. Right? So all that clarity is there in the heart of us by hearing this knowledge. We have that firm faith. So one is ignorance is destroyed, our faith has become firm now. It is unshakable. We may not be at a stage that person may come and say, oh, no, this Shastra says this and quote this. And maybe we are not at the stage where we can actually say, refute his argument based on Shastra. We may not be there. But still, we have that firm faith that no, what we are doing, this is perfect. Right? And having that faith is such a glorious thing. How many people in the world have that faith, that conviction about what the process, what we are following? Okay, any other benefits?
Prabhuji, also, we now know our constitutional positions that we are servant of Krishna.
Yeah, like before that, we were thinking, I am Indian, I am a man, I am this, I am that, I am, all designations. Now, at least we understand based on knowledge that what is our real identity, Jiver Swarupa Krishnera Nitya Das, right? And then further, okay, there may be some upadhis, little bit, but we are working towards coming to a stage of a real upadhi, which is servant of Krishna. So that's a very nice point. Thank you. Anything else?
We know that our final goal is to develop love of Krishna.
Very nice point. Like, like before coming to Krishna consciousness, what was our understanding? Our goal was live the American dream, be happy, have a nice car, have a two cars, have a big house, and then I'm happy. That's my goal, But now we realize our goal, that's all temporary. Everything is going to come and go. But a real gatihi, we'll come to that word, gatihi. Gatihi means goal, right? What is our parama gatihi? Our goal is Krishna Prema. That is sure, So if you see by hearing from Vaishnava how our consciousness is now transformed, our consciousness is now enlightened with the knowledge. So it's, we can meditate. So Prabhupada in the purport is talking about the practical experience of Maharaj Parikshit, that he was hearing, and it was just like that injection. It was just transforming his consciousness in such a way. Right? So Prabhupada also in the purport is referring to the verse that Bhakti Parshanubhava Viraktir Anyatra Chaikshatrika Ekakala Prapadya Manasya Yatasnushus Tushti Pushti Shud Apaya Nughasam. So this is 11th canto of Bhagavatam. And it actually says that how when one eats food, then three things happen, right? One's hunger goes away, one gets nourished, one experiences pleasure. Similarly, when one engages in bhakti, what happens? Three things happen, right? So tushti or satisfaction is actually compared to our devotion. Our devotion to Krishna increases. We all can say, yes, we don't have any devotion from Krishna, but at least something from when we actually started taking Krishna consciousness, there is some devotion from Krishna, right? I mean, we can have that mood. But, in relation to this point, Jiva Goswami is actually saying that when we eat something, we feel that satisfaction. Similarly, when we actually engage in bhakti, our devotion to Krishna increases. And then second point, he actually says, experience of the Lord is actually compared to nourishment, right? Because when we eat food and we get nourished, our body is sustained. Similarly, how is our devotion sustained? By actually experiencing the Lord. When we actually see the hand of the Lord in our sadhana, in our bhakti, in our day-to-day life, we are seeing how Krishna is actually relating with me. Then our bhakti gets nourished more and more and more. right? So our experience of Krishna is actually compared to the nourishment that we experience when we actually eat food, because both of them sustains our life. Our experience of Krishna is sustaining our bhakti, and similarly, food is sustaining our life, right? So it's an important point to remember that, what is actually keeping our bhakti going? We experience Krishna. We are getting that experience from Krishna. And the third one is actually viraktir or detachment. That detachment is actually compared to our hunger going away. As we eat, our hunger goes away. Similarly, as we take up a devotional service, we naturally develop detachment from this material world, right? And our acharyas explain in that purport that how, if a person is really hungry and you give him a really nice plate of prasadam, then his focus is just on prasadam. 100%. He's not even like, someone may be doing something, but his focus is 100% on just on eating food. Similarly, one who takes up devotional, he should have actually that same one-pointed tivra bhakti, just on devotion and not on any other process, no other distractions. And then the second point, our Acharya says that when one is hungry, he sees food, then what does he do? If it's prasadam right in front of him, immediately he puts in the mouth. Right? So similarly, a devotee, as soon as he sees anything material, what does he do? Immediately he thinks, how can I use this in Krishna's service? Just like a hungry man would immediately put food in his mouth, similarly a devotee sees, okay, whatever is material, here, oh, this object is there, let me see how can I use that in Krishna's service. Okay, and then the last point there is a crucial test of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is one gets positive enlightenment. We are enlightened by that knowledge, right? And all these effects are there to some extent in each of our spiritual journey. But the point here is we should actually be introspective and think about this. What is the transformation in my consciousness since I have taken up Krishna consciousness? What has changed? And when you meditate on these things, then we can say, yes, this is the effect, and this is how I can grow in my bhakti. Right? We can be more introspective on our path of Krishna consciousness. Okay. Now in text 6, we'll start. So now we'll read the questions that Parikshit Maharaj will ask Sukadeva Goswami. Right? So in the previous chapter, what did we read? The Shonak Adi Rishi asked Suta Goswami that yes, Parikshit Maharaj asked a question and this is the answer. Now we want to hear what are the further questions that Parikshit Maharaj asked. And now we are reading what are the questions Parikshit Maharaj asked. Okay, so let's start text number 6.
Bhuya eva vivitsami bhagavan atma mayaya yatedam shrijate vishvam durvibhavyam adishvarai.
Hare Krishna translation. I beg to know from you how the personality of Godhead, by his personal energies, creates these phenomenal universes as they are, which are inconceivable even to the great demigods. Hare Krishna.
So what is the first question that Parikshit Maharaj is asking? Right? So he's saying, say Bhuya, again I'm asking, Vivit Sami, I wish to learn how Atma Maya, how through the energies of the Lord, Srijate, his material world is actually created. Right? How through Krishna's personal energy, he creates these universes. And this concept of how Krishna is creating through his personal energies, it is actually Durvi Bhavyam Adhishwarahi. Adhishwarahi here referring to the demigods. And later in this chapter, we see Adhishwarai referring to Krishna himself. Right? So again, we talked about last class that how the context is so important. And the acharyas know the context. But here, Adhishwarai, the demigods, even the demigods are, it is inconceivable to them how Krishna is creating through his energies. Right? And hence Parikshit Maharaj is asking, please tell me how Krishna is actually creating, Srijate, creating this material world through his personal energies. Right? Now, you see Parikshit Maharaj up to this point, let's put ourselves in the place of Parikshit Maharaj. Up to this point, he has asked the question, like he's given up everything. He's come on the banks of Yamuna, 7 days, fast until death. Then he asked the question to all the sages. Then Sukadeva Goswami came, he asked the question, and he got the first part of the question. And the essence of the answer that Parikshit Maharaj got is what? One should hear and chant until death. Parikshit Maharaj is convinced that all I have to do until I die, these 7 days, is just to hear Hari Katha. That's it. Now Parikshit Maharaj is thinking, yes, okay, I have 7 days. I have to hear about Krishna, right? Now Parikshit Maharaj is pure devotee. Sukadeva Goswami is pure devotee. Why did he not say, okay, I have a very short time, only 7 days? Why, why did he not say, let's hear about Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes? Let's hear how Krishna lifted Govardhan hill. Let's hear Krishna's pastimes in Mother Yashoda. Let's hear Rasa Leela. And then in Bhagavatam 10 canto, 11 canto, there are like so many Gitas. There's Brahmar Gita, there is Venu Gita. Why don't let's hear this? I have a very short time, only 7 days. Let's hear this. Why did Parikshit Maharaj not ask these questions, knowing that he had only 7 days left? And why is he asking a question about the aspect of creation? Right? So Prabhupada is actually explaining that how Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami, they are actually okay. So there are a few points here why this is asked. The first point, okay, so first point is, without understanding the greatness of the Lord, by how his external energies is working, one cannot relish the pastimes with his internal energy. Right? So as long as we cannot appreciate the greatness of Krishna, we will not be able to appreciate the sweetness of Krishna. Right? So this knowledge of Krishna's creation is actually a prerequisite for us to relish the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. So as we are proceeding from the second canto all the way to the 9th canto of Bhagavatam, we are preparing ourselves in such a way that then we'll be really in a position to actually understand the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, or relish the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. Like why does Prabhupada make this point even in the preface of the Bhagavatam? He says the qualification to understand this, one has to systematically go from the first canto to the 10th canto. And by the end of the 9th canto, one will become what? What does Prabhupada say in the purport, in the preface of the Bhagavatam? We discussed this a few times. By reading from the first canto to the 9th canto, what does one become?
Eligible.
Okay, there's something more approved here. If you open the preface, then you can go back and read the preface. You can go back to the preface again and again. Prabhupada is making a point. When we read systematically from the first canto to the 9th canto, by the end of the 9th canto, one is sure to become a God-realized person. And then one can really relish the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. So those who are just jumping directly to the 10th canto, they may say, oh yeah, Rasa Leela, this Leela, Govardhan Leela. They may discuss, they may hear, but are they really relishing the nectar of the 10th canto? Unless they actually go systematically through the qualities of the greatness of Krishna, understanding the Shrishti Leela, we cannot relish the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. And both Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami, they are such great devotees. They are certainly qualified to speak Ras Leela, but they are setting the standard for each one of us that without understanding greatness, one cannot relish the sweetness. In the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is actually showing the same point. In the 9th chapter, if you see in the first few verses, 9.4, 5 onwards, Krishna is actually talking what? Maya tatam idam sarvam. He's actually talking how he actually interacts with this material world, how he's all pervading. And then later on, as the chapter progresses, then he comes to the sweetness of Krishna. Ananyas chintayanova, ye jana pariprasate, tesham nityabhyuktadam, yogakshemam vahamyam. I personally come, protect my devotees, I take care of them, I maintain them. But first, greatness, and then sweetness. So that's the main point here, that without understanding the greatness, we cannot relish the sweetness. So practically, even for us, in our spiritual life, we hear different speakers in ISKCON. We have so many wonderful Vaishnavas who give such wonderful classes, and we may be inspired by different speakers. But again, we have to make sure that we are not only hearing the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, but we have to hear the remaining section of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita. We have to hear everything, because for a devotee, the 10th canto of Bhagavatam is this aspect of the Shrishti Leela is as relishable as the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Is as relishable as the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. So by studying these sections, one is actually preparing our consciousness to actually relish those sections of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada actually explains this point in the purport, and he says, by studying these sections, we are qualifying ourselves by advanced spiritual techniques, Prabhupada says. We are qualifying ourselves by what? Advanced spiritual techniques. So by reading these sections, we are actually becoming more and more qualified. Our adhikar is actually increasing, so that gradually we can actually come and relish the canto of Bhagavatam. And then also Prabhupada refers to a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in his purports, which actually says, Siddhanta bolye chitte na kara alas. It says, Siddhanta bolye chitte na kara alas, iya hoite Krishna lage sudrida manas. Right? So what is this? Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi, second chapter, text 117. Okay, very important verse. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is actually making this point. Siddhanta, this conclusion or this understanding of the Lord's interaction with this material nature, bolye chitta na kara alas. Do not be lazy and ignore these aspects of Lord's creation, Lord's interaction with this material world. Why? Iha hoite Krishna lage sudridramana. Because when one actually studies these sections of the Bhagavatam, then what is one's mind? It actually strengthens one's mind. One's faith in Krishna increases. One's faith in Krishna increases. Right? Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Krishna. One's mind becomes attached to Krishna. So that's a wonderful verse, 2.117. Okay, and then further Prabhupada makes other points in the purport, but that is the main point, why Parikshit Maharaj is actually asking about the process of creation and not directly jumping to the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, right? He's setting the standard, why it is important to study these sections practically even for us. We may be like, oh yes, I just want to hear this Leela, but we have to understand the importance also of studying these sections of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Then Prabhupada in purport, additional points, he says, like, actually in an inquisitive mind, everyone wants to know what is our origin, who is the creator, how has the creation take place, how is this material world created, right? That's why, like, just in an inquisitive mind, we, there is all these, like, NASA is sending all these spaceships to the moon, and then you have all these, like, high advanced telescopes, all that just to find out what is our origin, how are we here, how is this creation take place. Everyone is inquisitive about that, and Parikshit Maharaj by this question is actually will be hearing the answer to actually solve, to get that knowledge to actually relate to our inquisitiveness. So Parikshit Maharaj, he already knew who is the creator, but now he did not have sufficient knowledge of the creation aspect. He knew who is the creation. How do you know that? And actually Prabhupada says that how in the first verse of the Bhagavatam we have already studied Janmadya yasya yatonmadyat itateshu abhigya swarat tene brahma hridaya adikave. There it was already clear that yes, who is the creator? Krishna. Krishna is the creator. So we know who is the creator, but we want to know how did he create, right? So even Parikshit Maharaj, he knew who is the creator, but now he's curious to know that how did the creation take place, okay? Right. And further, Prabhupada also talks about that, you know, how his Prabhupada says in the purport, research scholars, like he says, research scholars like, Prabhupada says, let me see, where is it? Yeah. So Prabhupada says, research scholars as great as Brahma, Shiva, Indra, and many other demigods are bewildered. So Prabhupada is calling even Brahma, Shiva as research scholars. Why? Because even they want to know how did the creation take place, and even they are inquisitive. But even they, personalities as great as Brahma and Shiva, are bewildered at times to understand Krishna's Maya Shakti. Right? What is the example of how Lord Shiva was bewildered by Krishna's Maya Shakti? Anyone would like to say? Yes, Prabhu?
Mohini.
Mohini.
Rohini Murti.
And Brahmaji, what is a good example?
When Krishna was having
Brahma
prasadam,
Mohan Leela.
Yes, so when Krishna was having that prasadam, the Brahma Vimohan Leela, that is one good
Yes.
example. Right? So even a personality as great as Brahma and Shiva are bewildered to understand this. You know, so how important it is to really study and understand these things. It is very important, very rare knowledge that, you know, even Brahma and Shiva are at times bewildered. Right? And right, and then Prabhupada says, if Brahma and Shiva can be bewildered, what to speak of mundane scholars, right? All these scientists here in the material world, you know, what to speak of them? And Prabhupada is making the point that, you know, Brahma, we know he has a very long lifespan. How many years does Brahma lives? 311 trillion years, right? So in proportion to the long life of Brahma, Krishna has also given him so much more superior intelligence than we have. You know, and proportion to our life may be like 60, 70, 80 years. Right? Brahma's life 311 trillion. So as there's such a big difference in our age, similarly, Krishna has given Brahma so much intelligence. So compared to that intelligence, so if you divide 311 trillion to, let's say 100 years of us, whatever number we get, we can consider Brahma's intelligence to be that number greater than our intelligence. Prabhupada is making the point. And even that person with that intelligence is bewildered. What to speak of us? What to speak of us? Right? So this knowledge is so rare. So how can we finally know? If we are not intelligent to understand, how can we know? The only process to understand the infinite is to hear from one who is connected with the infinite. Otherwise, there is no other way. We cannot speculate and understand this creation. We have to just hear from the lips of personalities like Sukadev Goswami. And only by that hearing can we actually understand the Srishti Leela, not by our philosophical research or mental speculation. Right? So, Prabhupada, yeah, I'll just show you one thing. Even if you see, you know, scientists, like now there is so much disconnect between science and God, right? You know, like now we say, like, if a scientist believes in God, then it's like he's not very great, you know, because he still is not confident about his own knowledge, right? But if you actually see, I just want to share the screen. Yeah. So, you know, this is, I prepared this slide for a different talk, but I want to show it here. And it's good, you know, like while preaching, we can actually use these points. So, yeah, if you see this. So these are quotes from Newton and Albert Einstein. You can see my screen? Yeah, okay. So this is by Isaac Newton. I believe the more I study science, the more I believe in God. You know, and this is actually from his famous book, the Principia, Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy. This is like the main book that Isaac Newton wrote. And what does he say? And from true lordship, it follows that true God is living, intelligent, and powerful. And from other perfection, that he is supreme or supremely perfect. He is eternal and infinite, omnipotent, omniscient. That is, he endures from eternity to eternity, and he is present from infinity to infinity. He rules all things, and he knows all things that happen and that can happen. Imagine Isaac Newton, who is actually all the scientists recognize, is actually giving such a description of a personal God, a living, intelligent God, a powerful God. Right? Oh, yeah. And then further, you have quotes from Albert Einstein: "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. I believe in God who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of the universe." How the creation has taken place, that just further intensifies our faith in Krishna. Right? In the absence of any other proof, the thumb alone can convince me of the God's existence. Isaac Newton is saying, how the thumb, just the working of this thumb, Isaac Newton is saying, that itself can convince me that God exists. How is this so beautifully designed, right? Our thumb. And then he says, gravity explains the motion of the planets, but it cannot explain who sets the planets in motion. Right. This is a very nice quote. So, when you are actually presenting Krishna consciousness, particularly those who are very scientifically, inclined, we can actually show all these quotes. When Albert Einstein and Isaac Newton have faith in the existence of God, and clearly they believe in how God exists, then how can you, a scientist, so-called scientist, not believe in the existence of God? Right. So there's so many quotes one can find. Okay. So let's continue.
Prabhuji, yesterday I was reading that he was giving his theory of relativity and quantum physics, but in between he said that I'm not interested in all this. I am interested in knowing how God has created all these universes. The verse 6, when I was reading, I was thinking of Einstein, that he actually asked this question. I hope someone gave him Bhagavatam.
It said that Einstein he came across the Bhagavad Gita. It is said that he had some, because I know how true it is, but if you search Albert Einstein and Bhagavad Gita, then there are some things of like what Albert Einstein said about the Bhagavad Gita. But then we don't know which. Certainly he didn't get Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, otherwise he would be chanting Hare Krishna and dancing in ecstasy.
Babji, the text 6 translation, this is exactly what Einstein wrote, that I want to know how God creates universes.
That's the same question. So Prabhupada, that's why he's pointing out that the inquisitiveness is there in everyone. And then great scientists actually understand that this is the creation of God. Okay, so let's continue. We'll go to text number 7.
Yata gopayati vibhur yata samyachate punaha yam yam shaktim upashritya guru shakti parapuman.
And there's 2 more lines for that.
Atmanam kridayan kridan karoti vikaroti cha.
Finally describe how the Supreme Lord, who is all-powerful, engages his different energies and different expansions in maintaining and again winding up the phenomenal world in the sporting spirit of a player.
So first question is, how does the Lord create the universe through his energies? Second question in this is, one way in text 7, he's asking about the primary and the secondary creation. So what are the 10 aspects of Bhagavatam will come in the 10th chapter of this canto, where we say Sarga, Visarga, Sthanam, Poshanam, Uthaya. So the first 2 aspects are the primary creation, secondary creation. So one way, in this verse, he's asking both about the primary and secondary. So Gopayati Vibhu, how does he maintain this material world? Samyachate Punaha, how does he wind it up? Shaktim Upashrita, how does he employ his energies while doing all this? And then he says Atmanam Kridaya, right? So Atmanam Kridaya means how is he, through his plenary expansions, right? Through his plenary expansion, actually doing this aspect of the secondary creation. That means, how does he, when he say Atmanam Kridaya, how through his plenary expansion, it refers to demigods such as Brahma and so on. How do they do the aspect of creation? So what is the primary creation? Primary creation is from Karunadakshay Vishnu, Mahavishnu, lying on the causal ocean and breathing, and all these elements, 16 elements coming into picture and all those. So that is primary. From Brahma onwards, that is secondary, right? So in this, he's actually asking primary, how does he maintain, how does he wind up, how does he employ his energies, and then Atmanam Kridaya, how through his plenary expansion, through Brahmaji, he actually further creates this material energy. So both primary and secondary. And then the other aspect here is said, Kridan Karoti Vikaroti, right? So Kridan Karoti Vikaroti, Prabhupada explains, just as a sporting spirit of a player, So how is the creation of, how does the Lord does the aspect of creation? Like how Prabhupada explains, it's not like Atlas holding the globe and it's like, oh, I'm tired now. When will this creation get over? I'll take a break, go for vacation. No, the Lord is just doing it a sporting spirit. Just like someone may go and play and enjoy. In that sporting spirit, the Lord does entire, the primary and the secondary creation. Right. So Parikshit Maharaj is saying that he wants to know more about these activities of the Lord, the maintenance, destruction, the primary creation, and the secondary creation. Right. So later on we'll discuss this point, but Bhagavatam gives the example of a spider. Right. If a spider, if you have seen how it creates his web, right? It is actually some fluid from his own body comes out, and the spider uses that fluid to create a web. And if you see the design of the web, I'm sure everyone has seen the design of a web. So beautiful, so intricate. So it is coming from the spider, its own fluid. It is getting created so beautifully. And then after the purpose is solved, that the food of the spider is caught in that, then the spider winds it up. So everything is actually creating it. He is maintaining it. And then when the purpose is done, he's winding it up, right? But the difference there is the spider, it has to do it to get his food. But why is Krishna doing it? He's breathing it out. He's maintaining it. He's taking it back. But Krishna just does it for fun. I mean, like that, for a sporting spirit, right? But the spider has to do it, But the aspect of how it's done, that example is given, right? Okay, and then in the purport, Prabhupada is talking of how the Lord is actually he's quoting this verse from the Katha Upanishad. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetanam Eko Bahuna Yo Vidadati Kama. So Prabhupada often quotes this verse in his lectures. What is that? Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetanam. So among all the eternals, there is one supreme eternal. Among all the conscious beings, there is one supreme conscious being. And that supreme conscious eternal being is actually maintaining all the other living entities. Right? Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadhati Kama. Right? So he is actually maintaining this entire material world. He's maintaining all living entities. Right? So Prabhupada in the purport, he goes further and he explains that he's maintaining both conditioned jivas and also liberated jivas. So Krishna is maintaining even the jivas in the spiritual world. Do they need maintenance? Yes or no?
I would think so, Prabhupada.
Yeah, but there is like, you don't grow old like how we grow old. They're not as dependent on food. They don't have disease. They don't need oxygen to breathe. They don't have like a material body. So
All energies of Krishna, right?
So Prabhupada is actually making the point that even the liberated souls, it is actually Krishna maintaining them. But how is he maintaining the liberated souls? Through transcendental relationship. So in the spiritual world, all those, associates or devotees who are serving the Lord, they don't need like air, water, all these things that we need for our maintenance that Krishna has so wonderfully designed for us. They don't need all these things. But how are they being maintained? By actually exchanging rasa with Krishna, that transcendental relationship. But here in this material world, Krishna is actually maintaining us by providing us things just for our subsistence. Who is the person who has designed that the trees actually take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen? Who is designing that system? How is that oxygen in the air? It's all like Krishna's arrangement. Okay, and then and then one Prabhupada also mentions a verse, Eko Bahushya, that one Lord has become many. Why? For the purpose of enjoyment. So Krishna has created all of us just for the purpose of enjoyment. Eko Bahushyam. One has become many. And the one is maintaining all the others. Okay, text number 8.
Nunam Bhagavato Brahman Harer Adbhuta Karmanaha Durve Bhavyam Iva Bhati Kavibhishchapi Cheshtitam.
Hare Krishna. Translation. O learned Brahmana, the transcendental activities of the Lord are all wonderful, and they appear inconceivable because even great endeavors by many learned scholars have still provided insufficient for understanding them. Hare Krishna.
So Nunam Bhagavato Brahman. Nunam is still insufficient Bhagavata Brahman. So Parikshit Maharaj is actually making the point that yes, I know who is the creator, but I have insufficient knowledge of the creation, and hence I want to know. And then he says the activities of the Lord, how are they? Harer Karmanaha. How are they? Two qualities: Adbhutaha and Durvibhavyam. Right? What is the activities of the Lord? They are adbhuta. They are wonderful. Right? And then second, they are durvibhavyam. Durvibhavyam means it actually appears inconceivable. It is difficult to understand the activities of how the Lord is actually doing all this. Okay. Actually, in the purport to text 7, and the last line, Prabhupada talks about this inconceivable potencies of the Lord. Achintya, Bheda, Abheda Tattva. So I'll just mention a little bit that. It's that in this verse also, where it says Durvibhavyam, inconceivable. Right? So what is the proper understanding of this Achintya, Bheda, Abheda Tattva that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has propagated? Right? So if you consider, even if you take fire, right? What are the energies of fire? Heat and light. Right? Is that possible that you have fire without heat and light? No. Wherever there is fire, there is heat and light. So one is the energetic, one is the energy. Right? The fire is the energetic, and the energies of the fire is heat and light. So there is no meaning to fire without heat and light. And there is no meaning to heat and light without fire, because finally it is through fire that heat and light is coming. So the energy and the energetic cannot be separated. And hence, in that way, the energy and the energetic are not different. Okay? The energy and the energetic are non-different because you cannot separate fire energy from the energetic. Right? So that's the first point. Yet, at the same time, they are different. In what way? That when you actually, if you're sitting close to a fire, you may experience the heat and light. So you are in contact with the energy. But if you, and that may be nice, and it's cold, you're experiencing heat and light, that is good. But if you contact directly the energetic, then you'll burn yourself. In that way, energy and energetic are different. You see the point? So one way, energy and energetic are non-different because you cannot separate both. So Krishna cannot be separated from his energies. At the same time, one may be in contact with Krishna's energies, but that does not mean that he is directly in contact with Krishna. Right? So in that way, they are different. Now, certain sections of the Shastra will focus more on the non-difference, right? Which is actually abheda. Certain sections of the Shastra will focus more on difference, bheda, right? But they are actually simultaneously bheda, abheda, right? Simultaneously bheda, abheda. Then how can we understand? Okay, at the same time they are same, at the same time they are different. How does it make sense? And hence there's a word achintya, inconceivable. And hence it's actually achintya bheda bheda tattva. And this is actually the perfect understanding of Krishna and his energies, that they are simultaneously one and different, and they are inconceivable. That gives the complete definition of God and his energies. right? So if you focus too much on the difference, then you have to actually bring in the aspect of how they are same. You focus too much on sameness, you have to explain the difference. But finally, it comes to Achinta Veda Veda Tattva. Okay. So the Durvibhavya means inconceivable. It actually appears inconceivable. The activities of the Lord are so wonderful. Through his energies, everything is happening so wonderfully that it actually appears inconceivable. Next part of this verse actually says, Kavibhis chapi cheshtitam. So Kavibhi here that says that even learned persons, cheshtitam, they put their endeavor to understand this. But even though they try to understand this, even for them, this knowledge is actually still insufficient. They are unable to understand this, even with all their endeavors. Like there is a verse in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, 14th chapter, Brahma's prayers to Krishna, where he actually says, Brahma says, that even if someone may, right, this is 10:14:7, right? It says, even if a kavi, even if a learned person may be able to count all the atoms of the earth, right? Or he may be able to calculate the number of molecules of sunshine in the sunshine. Or he may be able to calculate the number of particles in the snow. All this is impossible. But even if someone is able to calculate all these, he will not be able to calculate the number of glories or qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahma himself is making this point. Right? And then Prabhupada, in the purport, our acharyas make this point that how the Lord is Gunatma. One word for the Lord is Gunatma. That means the Lord has all the qualities with him. Right? You call the qualities within him. Right? And then Sanatana Goswami is actually explaining that the Lord manifests a specific spiritual quality for the benefit of each living being. Can you understand? Lord is manifesting a specific spiritual quality for the benefit of each living entity. How many living entities are there? Sarvagataha. Unlimited. So Lord is manifesting a spiritual quality for every living entity, and Lord has unlimited spiritual qualities. Right? So thus every conditioned soul can appreciate the Supreme Lord in a particular rasa. Right? And that's why the Lord is wanting everyone to go back home, back to Godhead, because that is a specific rasa, a specific quality that the Lord wants to reveal to us. But that quality he can reveal to each one of us only when we actually go back and connect with him, exchange that rasa with him. Right? So it's a very beautiful point to think about. Right? And then Sanatana Goswami makes a point that the Lord exhibits his most astonishing qualities during the childhood pastimes of Vrindavan. And hence those pastimes are actually the most wonderful, the most relishable of all pastimes. Right? Okay. Right. So Prabhupada in the purport also makes this point that one can know something about the unlimited only when it is explained by the unlimited. So you made this point earlier that, how can we know? Like we have read only 2 shlokas where it says like, how can we know the Lord who is so great? The only way to know the unlimited is when it's explained by an unlimited or explained by a representative of the unlimited. Like we already made this point, how a devotee of the Lord is what? Sarvagyasa. He knows everything, right? So in that way, the knowledge of a devotee is unlimited because Krishna can reveal everything to him. So when we hear from an unlimited devotee, in that sense, how he has unlimited knowledge, then we can actually understand the unlimited. So Prabhupada explains that point in the purport. Okay. And further, Prabhupada says that how, even this tiny planet Earth, we are not able to understand how it is functioning, how things are working, And this planet Earth is one tiny planet in this material universe. And that entire material universe is one small, like a bubble in so many unlimited bubbles. And if you consider entire material creation, that is only 1/4 of the whole creation. 3/4 is in the spiritual world. So even this tiny Earth planet, we are not able to understand what to talk of understanding that unlimited glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, let's go next. Text number 9.
Yata gunamstu prakriter yugapat kramashopi va bibharti bhurishasteka kurvan karmani janmavihi.
Hare Krishna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, whether he alone acts with the modes of material nature, or simultaneously expands in many forms, or expands consecutively to direct the modes of nature.
So, yatha gunams tu prakriti. So, the modes of material nature, they are acting upon each one of us, right? But now the question is, the Lord as one Purusha, right? The Supreme Lord is one. So, one Purusha, that refers to Karanodakshaya Vishnu. So, actually, from Karanodakshaya Vishnu, we'll discuss this in the next chapter also, like how when he actually glances through that, the, and you will come to this, how the jivas and the kal is actually, impregnates the material nature and all those facts. We'll come to that later. I won't explain that now. But here the question is, how does that Karanodakshaya Vishnu support the gunas of Prakriti? Does he do it at one time, right? So that is one aspect. Or the other second Purusha, that means the appearance as Brahma, Marichi, the secondary, that also Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, they are also in charge of controlling the three gunas. Right? So Karanodakshaya Vishnu, from him the gunas are originally coming, and then they are further controlled by these aspects of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and other sages and so on. Now, is this aspect of Karanodakshaya Vishnu controlling the modes and the aspect of Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh controlling the modes, is that happening, right? Is that happening Kramashah, gradually, or Yugapat, simultaneously? Okay. Is that control over the modes of material nature done by Karanodakshaya Vishnu and done by his expansions as Brahma, etc.? Is that done, if you see a Sanskrit, Yugapata, simultaneously or Kramashah, gradually? Okay, so that is the next question that Parikshit Maharaj asked. Okay. So no purport to this, but is the question okay? So up to this point, what are the questions Parikshit Maharaj has asked? Text 6. How does the Lord actually create this universe through his energies? Text 7. How does he do the primary creation and how does he do the secondary creation? How is he maintaining? How is he annihilating, winding up everything? Right? That is the second thing. Then third, he's actually saying how the Lord's. Okay, so that is two questions. And then third question is basically this text 9, where he says, how are the gunas working? Are they work simultaneously or do they work gradually in the primary and the secondary creation? Right? So are these three questions clear? Any questions or comments up to this point? Any questions on those questions? Okay, it's okay. All three questions are okay. Okay. So now let's go to text number 10, where he is going to. So some may say, like, Parikshit Maharaj has mentioned twice this point, how the activities of the Lord, even great Kavi, even great learned person, even Brahma, Shiva, they cannot understand. Then Sukadeva Goswami said, even Brahma cannot understand. Why are you asking me? If someone comes and asks you the question and you say, like, yes, I'm asking you this question, but even the greatest scientists do not know. Then you say, like, if great scientists do not know, then why are you asking me? How will I know? Right? So Sukadeva Goswami may be thinking at this time, that's how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes this point. Then Sukadeva Goswami is thinking, when Brahma cannot understand, great Kavis are bewildered, why are you asking me? So answer to that is text number 10. Okay, go ahead.
Vichikitsitam etan me bravitu bhagavan yata shabde brahmani nishnata parasmimshcha bhavan kalu. Kindly clear up all these doubtful inquiries, because you are not only vastly learned in the Vedic literatures and self-realized and transcendence, but are also a great devotee of the Lord and are therefore as good as the personality of Godhead.
So you see the point that Sukadeva Goswami is thinking, like, if Brahma cannot understand, why are you asking me? To respond to that, Parikshit Maharaj is actually making the point, and he's saying, Bhravitu Bhagavan Yatha, just as Krishna knows, his devotees also know. Like, Brahma is bewildered, but the pure devotees of Krishna are directly empowered by Krishna. They know the knowledge because Krishna is personally giving them knowledge, and hence, because you are an intimate devotee of Krishna, you know this, and hence you can give the answer, right? So first quality, he says, just as Bhagwan knows, a devotee knows, because a devotee is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Second point, he says, Shabde Brahmani. You're vastly learned in the Vedic scriptures, right? Shabde Brahmani Nishnataha, right? You're fully realized it's not only you have theoretical knowledge, but you have completely realized those Vedic knowledge, right? And Parasmin, you're always situated in transcendence. Right? So in one way, Parikshit Maharaj is glorifying Sukadeva Goswami, and he's actually expressing his confidence that Sukadeva Goswami, you know these things. Even if Brahma is bewildered, you know why? Because you're a great devotee, and because pure devotees are as good as the personality of Godhead. Shabde Brahmani, you're vastly learned in Vedic literature, you're fully realized Nishnataha, and then you're situated in transcendence. And hence, you can answer these three questions of mine. Right? So this is a wonderful point, that when when a question is asked, then the inquirer can actually express his faith in the speaker and say that because you have, and you can add on points, but you can say, like, one example, you can say, because you have directly heard from your guru, you know the answers, and hence you can speak. Because you are a pure devotee, hence you know the answers, and hence you can give it to them, right? So that confidence in the speaker is actually essential for the inquirer to actually receive the knowledge. Right? Understand the point? That confidence in the speaker is essential for the inquirer to actually understand the knowledge. So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually elaborates. He gives from Brahma Samhita, he quotes one verse. It's a very nice verse. I'm sure many of you know. Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Dullabam Adullabam Atma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Right? So what is this verse saying? Achyutam, first it starts with Advaitam. Advaitam means what? Advaitam means one who is indivisible, who is just one. That one actually divides into so many personalities. So the verse, every word in this verse is actually one way a contradiction. Advaitam, the one who is indivisible, is actually dividing into so many. Achyutam, Achyutam means that many avatars, amsas, vibhinamshas, they emanate from this personality, and yet this personality remains the complete whole. Right? So many amshas are coming, but still he is the complete whole. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam, right? So he's still the complete whole. That's Achyuta. Anadim. Anadim means he is always there, always existing. Yet it appears that Krishna takes birth. Right? Another contradiction. Right? Adyam. Adyam means he is eternal. But yet it appears that Krishna appears sometimes and then he disappears. He comes and he goes. Right? Then Purana Purusha. Purana Purusha means you are the oldest of all personalities. But yet, how does Krishna appear? He is always Navyavanamcha. All these different contradictory qualities are there in Krishna. How can one know Krishna? But then that verse is Vedeshu Dullabam. And if someone just studies the Vedas, it's actually very difficult to understand this Krishna. But Adullabam Atma Bhakto. One who is a bhakta, a devotee of Krishna, can understand all these contradictory qualities in Krishna. Apparently contradictory qualities can be understood only by a Atma Bhakta. Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Right? A very nice verse. So Prabhupada explains this verse, and why is he quoting? Because he's making the point that yes, there are so many apparently contradictory qualities in Krishna, but only a devotee and Atma Bhakta can understand all those qualities. Okay. And further, Prabhupada in the purport, he also quotes from 1855, right? Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yashasmi tatvata tato mam tatvato gyata vishate tat antaram. So this is actually the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says one can understand me as I am only by bhaktya mam abhijanati, only by pure devotional service, right? Only through devotional service one can actually understand Krishna. Okay. Another point Prabhupada actually makes in the purport, where he says, okay. So Prabhupada is actually making the point how a powerful devotee of the Lord, by the grace of the Lord, is actually more than Lord himself. So we mentioned the point that Parikshit Maharaj is saying that Sukadeva Goswami, because he is as good as the personality of God, he can speak. Now, Prabhupada is making the point that actually a devotee of the Lord knows the Lord even more than the Lord. So not only they are as good as, but Prabhupada is saying a devotee of the Lord is better than the Lord. Why? Because actually a devotee can relish, can understand the Lord more. Like when Guru Maharaj used to make this point, he used to say that, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna spoke about himself. Right? So he spoke, he gave knowledge to Arjuna. But then in the Bhagavata, because when devotees talk about Krishna, they can actually relish the qualities of Krishna more than when Krishna speaks about himself. So that's why Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. Bhagavad Gita is 700 verses. Because how much will Krishna will tell about himself? But devotees, because they are like the honey bees, they can go and relish every aspect of Krishna. And hence the devotees are that way even more than Krishna. So you can relish Krishna more in the association of devotees than when Krishna is directly speaking about himself. And that's why we see in the prayers of so many personalities like Prahlad, Dhruva, Prithu Maharaj, they all pray, "Oh Lord," Lord is right in front of them, and saying, "Oh Krishna, please give me association of devotees, because in that association I can relish you more than when you are directly in front of me." Right? So Prabhupada makes a point, and then he gives examples that even the Lord likes his devotees to be more glorious than him. Right? What example can we think in this regard? The Prabhupada gives one example is Hanuman, he says. That Hanuman, when he came, he just jumped across the ocean and reached Lanka. But when Lord Ramchandra came, he said, "I have to build a bridge." So who is greater, Hanuman or Lord Ram? Hanumanji. So Prabhupada is making that point, in that way. So Krishna likes to give the glory to his devotees. Another example that, can you think of an example? I'll give one example that Prabhupada quotes, and you can think of another example. It comes from Shastra. One more example Prabhupada gives is that of Ambarish and Dhruva Maharaj. Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. When Durvasa Muni, he goes to Vishnu and says, "Oh Vishnu, this Sudarshan Chakra is right behind me. Please save me." What does Vishnu say? "Aham Bhakta Paradina. I am under the control of my devotees. I cannot protect you. Go back to Ambarish Maharaj, ask him, he will be able to protect you." Who is greater, Ambarish or Vishnu? In that way, Ambarish, because Ambarish could protect Durvasa, but Vishnu said, "I am not." So in that way, this is more not from the point of tattva, but this is from the point of rasa. Right? So we have to, when we are understanding concepts, we have to understand whether this is a tattva concept or a rasa concept. From tattva, yes, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is mata parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjay. No one can be equal to Krishna. No one can be greater than Krishna. From tattva, that stands. From a rasa point of view, a devotee of Krishna is greater than Krishna himself. Right? So the both tattva and rasa, both concepts. Did you think of any other example?
Babaji, not from the Shastra, but from our present lives, I have actually experienced this. We relish Krishna more when our Guru Maharaj, or for example, Amarendra Prabhu, when he is giving classes, there is more rasa than even Prabhupada. Prabhupada Tattva is there. But Prabhupada disciples, we relish more in their presence, Krishna, because of the rasa. This is my personal experience too.
So, that's the point. But I'll give you one example is about the Srila Prabhupada himself, how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Pritivete Ache Nagar Adigam Sarvatra Prachar Hove Morana. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu predicted every town and village the Hare Krishna Mahamantra will be there. Well, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. He could have done it. Right? But who did it? Prabhupada. Because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to glorify Srila Prabhupada. Right? And this is there, right? One disciple asked Prabhupada that, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could have done it. Why did he not do it? And Prabhupada, in a humble mood, he actually said, he left that for me. So how the devotee, Prabhupada, is even more glorified than Krishna because he actually fulfilled the purpose of the statement that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself made. It was Prabhupada who actually fulfilled that. Right? So in that way, the Lord likes to give credit to his devotees. Okay, now let's go to text number 11.
In Bhagavad Gita also, like Krishna tells Arjuna that go declare that my devotees are more powerful.
Yeah, one is that nimitta matram bhava savasachi. And in the 11th chapter, he says that you actually fight and you win glory. You win the glory of that. Oh yes, Pandavas won. But I have already done everything. But I want to give credit to the devotees. Yeah, and also the other verse that I think you're referring to is from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right? And Krishna says, "Oh, Kaunteya pratijani na me bhakta pranishati." You declare that my devotee will never perish. Okay, let's do one more. Then we'll just take quick reflections. Then we'll go to the second part of this chapter. Okay, so text number 11.
Sutta uvacha etyupamantrito ragya gunanukatane harehe rishikesham anusmritya prativaktum prachakrame.
Hare Krishna. Suta Goswami said, when Sukadev Goswami was thus requested by the king to describe the creative energy of the personality of Godhead, he then systematically remembered the master of the senses, Sri Krishna, and to reply properly, he spoke thus.
So here in this verse, it actually says, Sutta Vacha. Now, we heard Parikshit Maharaj speak to Sukadev Goswami. Now we are going back, one level back, and Sutta Goswami is speaking to Shaunakadi Rishi, and he says, Iti, thus, Upa Mantritaha. So by the king Ragya, the king having Parikshit Maharaj having asked these questions, Upa Mantritaha, asked these questions about what? Guna Kathane, Guna Anu Kathane, about these activities of Hari, right? Having asked about this activity of Hari, how did Sukadev Goswami reply? He actually Anusmritya Prativaktum. He actually first systematically remembered the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, and then he actually spoke. Now, one may say that in the end of the first canto, Parikshit Maharaj asked the question. Starting of second canto, did Sukadev Goswami say, why did he not at that time say that, okay, I will answer your question, but first I will remember Krishna systematically, I will glorify Krishna, and then I will speak the answer. He, at least in Bhagavatam, it may be there, Bhagavatam is not giving all the details because there's so many details, but at least in Bhagavatam, that those verses are not there. Right? So how do we understand that? So when he started giving the answer to Parikshit Maharaj's first question, did he pray to Krishna or not? Right? So different devotees, like I have heard different points, but one point that personally that stands out to me is, see, now the rest of this chapter is Sukadev Goswami offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where he's praying to Krishna, that Krishna, you please empower me to speak this Harikatha. You please speak through me. You please be present in the words that I'm going to say. That is Sukadev Goswami's prayers that he's going. The entire chapter is his prayers. Right? Now, in the first chapter, right? If Sukadev Goswami, all these prayers were there in the first chapter of the second canto, if you see in that assembly, who all were there? First 3 chapters is doing what? First 3 chapters is establishing Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if he had started the first 3 chapters itself as, maybe internally he's always connected to Krishna. So, he has prayed and he's already connected to Krishna. That is that. But at least at that point in the Bhagavatam, it does not give glorification of Krishna, because at that point in that assembly, there are people who were into Karma Kanda, people into demigod worship, people into Astanga Yoga, all these different kinds of people were there. So Sukadeva Goswami had to establish the position of Krishna as the supreme, and also that devotional service to Krishna is the highest. And then, having established that in the first 3 chapters, now he is actually directly glorifying Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that is one explanation. And the other explanation also I've heard, and I'll just stick with this one explanation, right? Okay. So in this verse, he's saying he properly, systematically remembered Krishna and then spoke. So Prabhupada in his purport makes a very, very important point. He says, devotees understand that they cannot do anything independently. When we speak only when we are induced by Krishna to speak. Right? What is the verse? Rishikena, Rishikesha, Sevana. So our senses belong to whom? Krishna. Right? So how can we act without even taking permission? So the senses are not mine. They don't belong to me. So how can we act without taking permission of Krishna? How can we act independent of Krishna? Right? So devotees, as devotees, out of ignorance, people are doing it. But as devotees, we understand that we cannot do anything independent of Krishna, because each one of our senses is actually the property of Krishna. It is actually controlled by Krishna. It belongs to Krishna. Right? So, Prabhupada also quotes the verse, Sarvasya chaham riddhi sannivishto mata smitir jnanam apohancha. Right? Who gives us knowledge? Who gives us remembrance? Who gives forgetfulness? It's all Krishna. Krishna seated in the heart, he is doing all this. Right? So if you don't have knowledge, how will you hear? How will you see? How will you know how to write? Right? All of a sudden your memory is gone. You won't even know what is writing. Right? Some people have this color blindness. They have eyes, but they cannot distinguish between colors. Right? And one may say, yeah, eyes are there. Why can't they see colors? And one can give scientific explanation, but unless Krishna is sanctioning these senses to see something, without Krishna's sanction, nothing can actually happen. So for devotees, what is the main point Prabhupada says? Hence, before one acts, before one speaks, before one eats, one should actually seek permission of the Lord. And that is actually bhakti. So before one acts, what should we ask permission? We should pray to Krishna. Oh Krishna, at least in our spiritual activity, actually for all our activities, we should actually pray to Krishna. Before doing anything, we come to Krishna and we pray. Right? And how should we pray to Krishna? We can pray, oh Krishna, please, these senses, my entire body belongs to you. Please use me an instrument to serve you. Please make me act in such a way that I can actually please Vaishnavas. Please make me act in such a way that I don't disrespect anyone. I actually act in such a way only to make my Guru Maharaj proud of me. We can pray to Krishna in that way before acting anything. These are very powerful prayers. If you pray before acting, then you'll be so conscious that anything I'm doing is actually I'm doing it as an instrument of Krishna. So I should follow Krishna's instruction and act in that way. Especially when you're coming to a temple or coming in association of devotees, or then at least at that time we should do it always, but at least we can start off before coming to any program, before coming to temple. We offer obeisances and we pray to Krishna. Krishna, I'm going to go by your good fortune and association of devotees. please use me as an instrument. Make me act in such a way that I don't displease any Vaishnava. I act only in a way that I can be a service to a Vaishnava, and please make me act in such a way that I don't displease my spiritual master. You know? So before acting, we seek permission. Before eating, how do we seek permission? We actually offer our food to Krishna and then we pray. Sharira Vidyaja Jajendriya Paika. Right? We pray to Krishna. Right? And then we say, Krishna, thank you so much for giving me this wonderful prasadam. Right? And let me honor this prasadam and sing the glories of Radha Krishna Gunagav. Premadhako Chaitanya Nitai. Right? So that way we seek permission. And before speaking, we actually seek permission of Krishna. Right? So that's why this is so important that before any Hari Katha is there, what do? We chant Mangala Charan prayers. Why? Because we know what is our capacity to speak. We are just praying to Krishna, Krishna, you please speak through me. What do I know? Krishna will just say forgetfulness, and that's it. You forget everything. So even the speaking of Hari Katha, we have to really take shelter of our Guru, take shelter of Krishna before speaking Hari Katha. Right? So before acting, before eating, before speaking, we seek permission. So this is actually a very practical point, and we can see how we can practically implement this in our day-to-day life. You know? So practically, I can share a few points of my experience. Sometimes, when you're giving class, right? You may prepare so nicely for a class. You prepare all wonderful points and have quotes from Bhagavatam, Chaitanya, everything prepared. And sometimes when you go and we are right there, starting to speak, all of a sudden, blank. Nothing. No word comes, I prepared so nicely, but all of a sudden blank. And sometimes Krishna does that. Why? To actually again remind us that we are speaking only on his behalf. Only by Krishna's mercy we can speak anything. And also sometimes, Krishna sees a little pride in our heart. Oh, I prepared so nicely. So many shlokas, so many, I have all this reference, that reference. And then Krishna says, pride is coming. And then all of a sudden, one thing, and then you cannot speak anything. I have this experience, like sometimes the class is going on and I'm looking at the clock. What? I made this point. Only 1 minute passed. I have to speak until so and so time. How will I fill the gap? Sometimes it is like just Krishna makes it blank. And sometimes opposite happens. You didn't prepare for the class and you just go and then you get all these points coming out. It's like, where are these points coming out? I never realized these points. And sometimes it so happened, I had this experience that I was saying something and after the class, someone came and said, oh, that point you made was so wonderful. And I was thinking, did I really make that point? That the audience there understood a deeper point than I made. I said, this is amazing. This is all Krishna, because I spoke something and that person understood something even more deeper than what I spoke. And when that person said, I said, oh, that's a very nice point you're telling me. So all these things happen, and this all proves that Hari Katha is all like Krishna is using us as an instrument. So that's why I'm encouraging everyone, give classes, wherever possible, talk to people, find a group, give Hari Katha, discuss Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, you get all these wonderful experiences there. Our senses are meant to be used for glorification of Hari. Right? So now the rest of the chapter, 13 verses, where Sukadeva Goswami will offer obeisances to Lord Shri Krishna. So beautiful verses. So we'll discuss that. But before that, let's just take some reflection, realizations, questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I will share an reflection and also an example. I really like the point that how Lord is manifesting a spiritual quality for each one of us. And Prabhuji, we read that in the first canto that out of 64 qualities, the jivas can have up to 50 qualities, right? 78% of the qualities. So I was listening in the lecture that Prabhupada was residing in Radha Damodar temple, and Jamna Mataji used to cook for her. And there was a monkey, she monkey, who used to come and she used to steal the chapatis and other things from the kitchen. And we know that Krishna is a great linguistic, one of his qualities of Krishna is that he knows all the languages. So one time, Yamuna Mataji was coming into Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada was speaking monkey language, kaka, 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 kaka. And Prabhupada was speaking to the monkey in monkey language. And Yamuna Mataji was standing there stunned, and that monkey went away. And Yamuna Mataji said that, did I just hear you, Prabhupada, speaking in monkey language? Prabhupada said, yes, I told the monkey, don't disturb, don't come. And that monkey never came again. So Prabhupada was actually speaking monkey language, kaka, 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 to that monkey.
Thank you, Martin. Anyone else have any points?
I really like the point where the devotee of the Lord knows the Lord even more than the Lord, because the devotee can relish the Lord. So if we hear Krishna through the devotee, we actually get a deeper insight into Krishna than if we hear Krishna directly speaking. And I was thinking how, Bhagavad Gita is Krishna directly speaking about himself, but if you read Bhagavatam and the prayers of the devotees, then you actually get a deeper insight because you're hearing the devotees' rasa and their relationship with Krishna.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You said only the Krishna's contradictory qualities can be understood by a pure devotee of Krishna.
Very nice. Thank you. Yes, there's so many apparently contradictory qualities, and they can be understood only by Vaishnavas. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I really like the point, like how fortunate we are by hearing from Srila Prabhupada's words, how our ignorance have gone and we gain the knowledge by reading Srila Prabhupada books and his philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I really like that point, how devotees are more merciful than the Lord himself.
It's wonderful. Yeah, we should, the reason initially I asked this point about like thinking about the transformation of consciousness from before coming in contact with devotees, and then now after hearing so many classes. And this is like an introspection that we can do in our own spiritual life, that how this knowledge has actually transformed our consciousness. And that actually brings a mood of gratitude to Srila Prabhupada and all the Vaishnavas who are actually keeping us. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I was thinking about this point of how Krishna or the Lord wants to give credit to his devotees, and he wants to pretend like he's a normal human. I always wondered about how Hanuman could fly and Rama had to seek the help of little monkeys to build a bridge and go there. And I know he's setting an example of, as a human, how to live. Maybe that's why, but otherwise he probably had all the powers that he could have done by himself, right?
So, like one way, yes, Lord Ramchandra, like, if he had to kill Ravan, like, why go through all that, right? He was just thought, okay, Ravan, that. He could be like, what does the Lord have to do? He could just like through his energies, his energies are manifesting so many things, right? Through his energies, he could have done it. But by actually going through that pastime, one way he's engaging all those people, all the entire Vanar Sena is being engaged in the seva of Lord Ramchandra. And also the other point is he's actually glorifying all those devotees, and he's showing what is bhakti, so that future generations we understand what are the pastimes of Lord Ramchandra. How does he actually interact with his devotees? What are his pastimes of the devotees and Krishna? And the rasa we get to relish. So Krishna himself, or Lord Ramchandra himself, is relishing that rasa with his devotees, and then he's actually showing that this is a rasa, this is what we are meant to do, this is what our existence is, just to relish that rasa between the Lord and his devotees. So, thank you. Okay, so let's take a quick break and then come back and we'll do the prayers. Thank you so much. Bhagavatam ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Everybody chant and dance. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. One time, a little louder, everyone together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. One more time, a little louder, with your heart.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, Hare Krishna, all devotees. Please come back. Let's continue discussion. Okay, so now we are going to discuss 13 verses where Sukadeva Goswami is going to offer obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if you consider entire Bhagavatam, we see that how Sukadeva Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam, at this point, one way you can say, this is the point where he's really like, because throughout the Bhagavatam, we'll be reading questions by Parikshit, Sukadeva Goswami, and Sukadeva Goswami will quote so many different personalities and their prayers of those personalities. But here, Sukadeva Goswami is offering his own prayers, one way saying that, okay, this is a start of an entire Bhagavatam. Because now, till this time, he's just established the aspect of bhakti. Now he's starting to glorify the devotees and talk about all these pastimes. And before that, so this is one way, the Mangalacharan prayers of Sukadeva Goswami. Right? So how important are these prayers? That this is like the Mangalacharan prayers of Sukadeva Goswami. So this is very important prayer. 13 verses he's going to glorify. And there are two parts to this. The entire 13 verses can be divided into two sections. The first section, and you'll see like, almost like many verses have this last line as the same. Tasmai Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha. Right. So many of the verses in the first section have this common line where it says Tasmai Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha, where it actually says he's offering obeisances. Namo Namaha means offering obeisances unto the all auspicious Supreme Personality of Godhead. Subhadra referring to all auspicious Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shravase referring to one who of whom we should hear about. Right? So I'm offering obeisances to the all auspicious Supreme Personality of Godhead, of whom one should actually hear about. Right? So Parikshit Maharaj knows that next 7 days he just have to hear Hari Katha. So he's offering obeisances. Who is more qualified to hear, who is more qualified person to actually talk about, to actually discuss than the most auspicious Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So you see the point there. Tasmai Subhadra, referring to all auspicious, Subhadra Shravase, one should hear about him, Namo Nama, offering obeisances. That is from text 12 all the way to text 18. And then text 19 to 23 is where he's offering obeisances to the Lord, praying that, oh, you dear Lord, please be pleased upon me. You please speak through me. You please empower my speech so that I can actually speak these words of Hari Katha. Right? So that is 19 to 23. Okay. So two sections. So let's start with the first verse of section 1. Text number 12.
Shri Sukha Uvacha Nama Parasmai Purushaya Bhushyase Sad Udbhava Sthana Nirobdha Lilaya Grihita Shakti Tirtayaya Dehinam Antar Bhavayanu Palakshya Vartmane.
Hare Krishna. Sukadeva Goswami said, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, for the creation of the material world, accepts the three modes of nature. He is the complete whole residing within the body of everyone, and his ways are inconceivable.
So what is the first aspect that Sukadeva Goswami is glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead? If someone asks you, okay, please offer some prayers to Krishna, right? And, one way is you can say, okay, this is my favorite shloka from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's how I'm going to offer it. So if anyone has any favorite shlokas from Bhagavatam of offering prayers to Krishna, you can post it on the chat, just a verse number. But what aspect of the Lord is Sukadeva Goswami offering obeisances? So as I mentioned, there are two aspects. One is the greatness, referring to the power of the Lord, and second is the sweetness. right? So first, Sukadeva Goswami is offering obeisances to the greatness, the aspect of the power of the Lord. And next verse, he'll come to the sweetness, right? So what is he offering obeisances here? Now, if you see in the Sanskrit, it says Udbhava, creation, Sthana, maintenance, Nirodha. Nirodha means winding up. So he's actually offering obeisances and saying, oh, unlimited Para Puman, oh, Supreme Personality of God, it is you who actually, as a Leelaya, as a pastime, manifests the three Purusha avatars, and the first Purusha avatar, second Purusha avatar, third Purusha avatar, Karandakshay Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Shirodakshay Vishnu. And it is you who actually Grihita Trita Ya Shakti, who actually accepts the three modes of material nature and manifests your form as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Right? To this Lord, I offer my obeisances. So here he's saying Krishna, it is Krishna who is the source of Karandakshay Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Shirodakshay Vishnu. So he's offering obeisances to that Lord. And then he's saying, oh, it is you who actually accepts the three modes of material nature, accepts the three modes of material nature in your form as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So all obeisances unto you. So here, offering obeisances to the power or to the opulence of that Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? And then finally he says Anupalaksha. And this entire concept of how the Lord is manifesting as three Purusha avatars and then three Guna avatars, it is actually inconceivable. It's very difficult to actually understand. Right? To that unknowable Lord, I offer my humble obeisances. Okay. And then Prabhupada in the purport, he actually talks about these three aspects, Karandakshay, Garbhodakshay, Shirodakshay, and then he talks of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva as the Guna avatars, right? So that is Guna avatar, and then that is Purusha avatar. So both of those aspects, the Lord is, Sukadeva Goswami is offering obeisances. And the last part of the purport, he says, Bhakti Yoga is the only process by which one can actually know that Anupalaksha. Anupalaksha there refers to even yogis. For yogis, it's actually inconceivable to know the Lord. But for Bhakti Yoga, they can actually know the Lord because the Lord reveals himself to the devotees. Okay, that's the first verse. Okay, next, go to the next one. And you can stop me if there are any questions in this. So first verse on the power. Right? Okay. Second verse.
Bhuyo namasad vrijina chide satam asambravaya kila sattva murtaye pumsam puna paramaham sevashrame vyavastitanam anumrigya shushe.
Translation, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I again offer my respectful obeisances unto the form of complete existence and transcendence, who is the liberator of the pious devotees from all distresses and the destroyer of the further advance in atheistic temperament of the non-devotees demons. For the transcendentalists who are situated in the topmost spiritual perfection, he grants their specific destinations. Hare Krishna.
So after talking of the power, offering obeisances to the greatness of the Lord, the second aspect is the sweetness. So this verse is talking of the sweetness. Now when we talk to sweetness of the Lord, how do we explain the sweetness of the Lord? So actually in this verse and the next verse, Sukadeva Goswami is offering sweetness in relationship to the Lord's mercy to different personalities. When we talk of the sweetness, we actually say, oh yes, the Lord is all-powerful. It is one of his amshas that is manifested as Karno Dakshay Vishnu. So powerful, Lord. But what is the sweetness aspect? That in spite of him being so powerful, he is actually personally relating with me. He's actually helping me in my spiritual life. He's actually helping me taking out the anarthas in my heart. That Lord, who is the greatest, has actually, through his mercy, become such a sweet personality. Right? So the sweetness aspect is in terms of the Lord's mercy upon different personalities. So first one, this word starts with Bhuya Namaha. Bhuya Namaha means again I'm offering obeisances. So after offering obeisances of greatness, now is sweetness. And then first one is Sat Vrij Sadbrijana Chitte. Sadbrijana Chitte means, how does the Lord relate to his devotees? He actually removes the distress of his devotees and then he gives them what? Liberation. Okay, that's the first thing. Then second, Asatam Asambhavaya. That how does he relate to the atheists or non-devotees? How does the Lord relate to the atheists and non-devotees? Anyone wants to say?
He kills the demons.
Right.
And that way he liberates them.
He kills the demons, right?
And that way he liberates them.
Yeah, so even for the demons, here it says, Prabhupada says, the destroyer of further advancements in atheistic temperament of the non-devotees demons. So by killing the demons, the Lord is actually killing their atheistic mentality and giving them liberation. Right? So we see how Lord, he killed so many demons in when he actually appeared 5,000 years before. Right? So he had atheist, non-devotee demon. He destroys further unhappiness. Because if they are continuing their nefarious activities, then they are just increasing their own suffering. So Lord kills them, and by that he stops their nefarious activities, and in that way he's actually liberating also the demons. So that's how the Lord's mercy upon the devotees, and then the Lord's mercy upon the demons. Okay. Now the next part here he says Akhila Sattva. Akhila Sattva means this personality of Godhead, he is Shuddha Sattva. He is a complete form of transcendence. He has nothing to do with this material world. So if you see, the point is so beautiful that the Lord has nothing to do with this material world, yet he actually comes down and interacts with everyone in this material world. With his devotees, he takes away the distress, gives them liberation. With the non-devotees, he kills them. That's why he stops their nefarious activities, and that's why he shows his mercy. But the Lord himself is transcendental. He is beyond this material world. His form is that of complete bliss, complete knowledge, complete bliss, complete transcendence. Right? So that's why it says Akhila Sattva. And then the last part of this verse says Paramahamsya. He is the highest stage of spiritual perfection. What does that mean? That here it actually says how the Lord relates to the Paramahamsas. Right? So who are the Paramahamsas? Hamsa means what? Swan, right? Who are the Paramahamsas?
They only take the essence, right? They're in the world, but they're only seeking the essence of everything.
Right. Okay. So Hamsa has a quality that the milk and water, it can just take out the milk only. So similarly, Paramahamsa is those personalities who have the quality that even though they may be in this material world, but they can actually take out the spiritual perspective or spiritual aspect even in this material world. Right? You see a material object, but you use that in Krishna service. That way you spiritualize it. Right? So those are the Paramahamsas. So here in this verse, there are two Paramahamsas who have been described. One is those who are the Gyanis or Bhakti Mrishya Gyanis. Right? Gyanis. And second are the devotees. So how does the Lord relate to the Paramahamsas? To those who are Gyanis, he gives them what? The bliss of Brahman. Right? And then to the devotees, what does he give them? He gives them the bliss of Prema. Right? And in that way, the Lord. So the whole point of this verse is the Lord's sweetness, his relationship with others. Right? So with those who are sadhakas, he takes distress, gives them liberation. Those who are non-devotees, it kills their mentality or kills them. Those who are Paramahamsas, those who are perfected. Then of those, there are two categories. One is the impersonalists. One is the Gyanis and one is the devotees. To the Gyanis, he gives them what? The bliss of Brahman. To the devotees, what does he give them? The bliss of Prema. And that's how the Lord actually relates to all. So even though the Lord is actually beyond this world, he's transcendent, out of his kindness, out of his sweetness, he's actually coming down and taking care and reciprocating with each one of these four categories of people. Okay. So this shows the Lord's reciprocal nature, his mercy of sweetness. So Prabhupada in the purport, he actually talks about Paramahamsas, and he actually says, he says that how even in sannyas ashram, there are the four types and four levels of a sannyasi, right? Kuticha, Bahudak, Parivrajacharya, Paramahamsa. So what are these 4 levels of sannyasi? Kutichak is one who's taken sannyas, but he'll stay outside the village and the family will still come and provide him food, take care of him and so on. That's his first level. Second, Bahudak. Then Bahudak means like, okay, now no longer from a family. I will go door to door. I'll do madhukari. Just like a bee, I will go and beg. Bee takes honey and different flowers. I just go door to door, beg for little food. Whatever comes, I'll take that. That is Bahudak. Parivrajacharya. Parivrajacharya is one who travels all around the world. And actually, he preaches the message of Krishna. He enlivens people in Krishna consciousness. That is Parivrajacharya. Paramahamsa. Actually, in this 4 stages, it describes Paramahamsa, one who has done all the preaching work, and finally he goes back to Vrindavan and is just ready to just, go back home, back to God. That is Paramahamsa. So 4 stages of sannyas. So Prabhupada mentions that because of the word Paramahamsa here, right? And then he actually makes the point that actually Paramahamsa can be applied to both impersonalists and the devotees, the Gyanis and the Bhaktas, right? But then he says that Jiva Goswami is establishing that the real Paramahamsas are actually only the devotees of the Lord, right? Because even those Gyanis, they are actually, yes, they are renouncing the material world, they're connecting to the spiritual, but their connection is not perfect because they have not accepted the lotus feet of Krishna as the highest. So even the Gyanis cannot be considered as the highest of the Paramahamsa. Only the devotees can be considered the highest of the Paramahamsa. So Prabhupada makes that point in the purport. But coming back to the verse, the theme of the verse is the Lord relates to both kinds of Paramahamsas, to the Brahmanandis. Brahmanandis, he actually gives them bliss of Brahman. To the devotees or the Premanandis, he gives them the bliss of Prema. Okay, was okay? Right. Okay, so this is the second prayer. So first prayer on the power, the greatness of the Lord. Second prayer on the sweetness. Okay. Now next verse, he'll continue. He'll talk about both the power and the sweetness. Right, so it's beautiful. First verse power, second verse sweetness, third verse power and sweetness. Okay, so let's do text.
I have a question here, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Prabhupada has gone from Paramhamsa stage to Parivrajacharya. Why did he he went to Vrindavan and he was living there happily, but then he took the role of Parivrajacharya and came back to US to preach.
Yeah. So when we actually when we say the Prema Dhvani, what do you say? Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya. Right? Astotarasa Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, right? So we are saying, what is Prabhupada's position? He's both Paramahamsa, he's certainly a Paramahamsa, the topmost of all, but he's actually to give his mercy to all the people, starting with those hippies in the Bowery, starting with those people, to give mercy to all the people around the world. He's taking the role of Parivrajacharya and going out door to door, preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? How we also give the point that how we have Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam. Uttam sees everyone as devotees, but the Uttam Adhikari comes to the level of Madhyam to actually preach Krishna consciousness, right? Because at Uttam, if he sees everyone as devotee, who will he preach to, right? But he comes to the Madhyam and then he makes distinctions. He says like, oh, this person is innocent. Let me share Krishna consciousness with him. So that way, it is not like, it is out of the mood of giving Krishna to others that they are actually taking a position which is actually like a Paramahamsa is taking the position of a Parivrajacharya to give Krishna to others. It is out of their merciful nature. Just like Krishna. Krishna is the all supreme personality of Godhead. But why does Krishna come into this material world? He's the highest, right? He's transcendental. Why does he have to come here? To actually enliven us, right? What is that thing? Yeah, forgetting that. Who remembers RRA? Rectify our
Rebellious attitude.
Rebellious attitude. Thank you. Yeah. So Krishna comes down to actually rectify our rebellious attitude. So similarly, these devotees, though they are at the highest, they actually go out become Parivrajacharya to actually rectify our rebellious attitude. Right? So to understand, they understand the heart of Krishna and then they take up that move. Okay? Okay. So text 14, power and sweetness.
Namo namaste Svarishabhaya Satvatam Vidurakastaya Muhuku Yoginam Nirasta Samyati Shayena Radhasa Swadhamani Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, who is the associate of the members of the Yadu dynasty, and who is always a problem for the non-devotees. He is supreme enjoyer of both the material and spiritual worlds. Yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There is no one equal to him because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable.
Right. Thank you. So, so how is this verse talking about both the power and the sweetness of the Lord? So, in terms of power, it actually makes the point. It says Nirasta Samya Atishayena Radhasa. So, if you see the word Radhasa, that is referring to the power of the Lord. That no one is equal to him, or his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. Right. So, if you see the word Radhasa, what is the word to mean? Opulence, right? So Atishayena Radhasa, his greatness, his opulence, that no one is greater than him, right? Mata Parataram Nanya Kinchit Asti Dhananjaya. That is the greatness of Krishna, right? But then, where is the aspect of sweetness? Then there are two ways the aspect of sweetness is mentioned. Rishabhaya Satvatam. That Lord who is the greatest has become what? He's become an associate of the member of the Yadu dynasty, Rishabhaya Satvatam. Krishna himself has come and become one of the member of the Yadu dynasty. Why did Krishna come and do that? That is his sweetness. He wants to have rasa with his intimate associates, right? So in that way, that is one aspect of sweetness. And the other aspect of sweetness is, again, the aspect of how he relates to different personalities. So here it says Vidura Kashtaya. So those who are Kuyogina means non-devotees. He is very distant from those who are non-devotees, and yet those who are devotees, Ramya says Swadhamni Brahmani. He enjoys in his own Mathura Mandal in the spiritual sky with the devotees. Right? So one aspect is power, right? How he is, there's no one, immeasurable opulence. The other aspect is how that immeasurable, unlimited personality of God has taken birth in the family of Yadus, and he's having rasa, he's having exchanges with those Yadu dynasty. And, and the other aspect is those who are Kuyogis. Then he actually maintains, for them, he's a very distant God. You know? For devotees, he's a very close God. For non-devotees, he's a very distant God. Right? It's not that the Lord is from his side is distant, but because the person is Kuyogi, he has created that distance to the Lord. He has created that distance to the Lord. So, is that okay, this verse? How it is showing both the power and the sweetness, right? Okay. So now in the purport, if you see, Prabhupada talks of two sides of the transcendental manifestation of the Lord. What are the two aspects of the Lord's transcendental manifestation? One aspect is for his pure devotees, like the Yadus, to Arjuna, to the Brajvasis. He is a constant companion. He is right there with them, like in his personal form as Shama Sundar Krishna. He is right there having rasa with them. That is personal. That is one aspect. The second aspect is how that Lord, he expands himself as the Brahma Jyoti, which is all pervasive, right? All pervasive. And in that Brahma Jyoti, there is one small dark section. And what is that? That is the Mahat Tattva, the covering of the Mahat Tattva. And beyond that is the material universe. So those who have turned away from Krishna, Krishna says, okay, you go there. You know. So for them, Krishna is a distant God, though Krishna himself is entering into that. For them, Krishna is a distant God. Right? So for those who are devotees, Krishna is having rasa with them. and those who are non-devotees, there's this small area in this Brahma Jyoti where the entire Mahatattva is actually existing. And then Prabhupada quotes one verse from the Ishopanishad in the section where he says, is this verse? Yeah. So, yeah, in the last section of the purport, Prabhupada says, Hiranyamena Patrena Satyasya Pihitam Mukham Tattvam Pushan Apavreno Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. Where a devotee prays to the Lord. So a devotee who may be in the material world, he actually prays to the Lord and say, "Oh my Lord, please take away that dazzling effulgence which is covering your real face so that I can actually relish the sweetness of your face." And that's how. So there are two aspects to the Lord. One is the personal aspect, one is the Brahma Jyoti aspect. How does a devotee relate to the Brahma Jyoti aspect? He prays to the Lord that please take away this Brahma Jyoti covering so that I can relish your face. The non-devotees, they are situated in this Brahma Jyoti, but a covering of the Mahat Tattva. Beyond that, they are situated so that they can try to enjoy separate from Krishna. Right? So that is the aspect of the Lord relationship with these two personalities, and that is his sweetness. Okay. So is this okay? First three verses, any further questions? Power, sweetness, power and sweetness.
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes,
Prabhuji, we read that in verse 13 that he kills the demons, no? Or the atheistic temperament. So Prabhuji, these days atheism is a new fashion, no? Especially the young generation. They say that, oh, I have nothing to do with religion, I don't believe in God. So how Krishna is relating to them?
He's relating to them as cruel death. Right? Krishna says, Kalosmi. So if you see, why is even the atheistic mentality, like one way Krishna has put the people in this material world because they want to enjoy separation from Krishna. But in spite of them being here, are they free from Krishna's influence? No. Krishna is acting upon them in the form of Prakriti, in the form of Kal, in the form of Karma. And when these atheistic people go through that suffering and go through the results of their karma, then they say, oh, this is such a place of misery. Oh God, where are you? So even Krishna subjecting the atheists to these influences through his external energy is actually the mercy of Krishna. Is the mercy of Krishna. You know, maybe in this lifetime, maybe people don't realize that yes, suffering is there, I should turn to God. But all that suffering, one day, maybe they will come and say, oh, I'm so tired of this. God, if you're there, please help me. You know, how they say that in a crematorium, no one is an atheist. You know, in a crematorium, no one is an atheist because at the time of death, who else is there? And they say, oh God, if you're there, please protect this person who's passed out. And please protect me so that I never die. So at the time, so that is the manifestation of the Lord. Right? So Lord is manifesting both for the theist and the atheist. Okay, is that okay, Mati?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
And let's go to text number 15. So now he's talked of both devotees, non-devotees. Now those who are sadhakas, you know, from non-devotee coming to the stage of devotee, how does the Lord purify them? That is an aspect of the Lord's mercy, his sweetness. So we'll read in the next few verses, how does the Lord purify the devotees? Okay, text 15.
Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, yadikshanam, yad vandanam, yat shravanam, yad arhanam. Lokasya sadyo vidunoti kalmasham. Tasmai subhadra shravase namo namaha.
Who's next?
Arundhati Mataji.
Is it me, Mataji?
Yeah, I don't see Divyanati Lila Mataji.
Oh, okay. Sure. Hare Krishna. Translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto all auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrances, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performer. Hare Krishna.
So, how is this a glorification of the Lord? The Lord is actually so kind that anyone in this material world, either he does kirtanam, he does smarana, he does ikshanam. Ikshanam means what? To see the Lord, right? How Lord Jagannath comes out on a chariot and he gives darshan to everyone, and everyone just sees the Lord, right? Ikshanam. Then vandanam. Someone may say, oh, I'm tired. Please, God, help me, right? Vandanam. Or shravanam, right? Hearing about the Lord, right? Arhanam, worshipping the Lord. Any of these ways, if someone just connects with Krishna, then what does Krishna do? Vidunoti kalmasam. Vidunoti, we heard this, we have read this word vidunoti, right? Where does vidunoti come?
Vidinoti Suhusratam.
Vidunoti.
Shunvatam
1
Sukha.
to 17.
Yes. Shunvatam Sakatha Krishna.
Shunvatam Sakatha
In the heart, he does the vidunoti. So Krishna is saying here in this verse, Sukdev Goswami is saying that Lord is so merciful that in any of these 6 aspects, if someone just connects with Krishna, what does Krishna do? Vidunoti kalmasam. All the effects of the sins, he actually washes away. And Prabhupada in the translation, he actually elaborates and he shows the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he says, at once washes away. You know, so Prabhupada adds that at once he cleanses the effects of all the sins of the performer. To that Lord, so if you see the last line of this verse, Tasmai Subhadra Shavase Namo Namaha. So you can memorize this last line. Actually, this verse 17, 18, 15, 15 also is actually there for the verse from, and I think maybe 15 is not there. But 17 and 18 are there. And 17 have this line, Tasmai Shubhada Savase Namo Namaha. Right? So we can also pray to Krishna in this way. Tasmai Shubhadra Shravase Namo Namaha. My obeisance.
16 word, yes.
Okay. So, at once one gets cleansed of this. So Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about what does Kirtanam mean? Right? So normally when we say Kirtan, we say, okay, let's take the Mridanga, let's take the Kartal, we do Kirtan. But actually, Kirtanam means glorifying the Lord. So any form of glorifying. So Prabhupada said, even remembering the Lord, visiting the temple of the Lord, offering prayers to the Lord, hearing the Lord, doing melodious Kirtan, reciting the Shastra, everything is actually glorifying the Lord. So everything is Kirtan. So Prabhupada elaborates the definition of Kirtanam in the purport. Right? Then Prabhupada makes this point. He says, we must know definitely that the Lord is present wherever such pure transcendental service is performed, and thus the performer of offenseless Kirtanam has positive association with the Lord. Right? So in this verse, Sukdev Goswami is saying that the Lord is so merciful that so many different ways he's making himself accessible to the conditioned jivas. Right? And Prabhupada is elaborating that point that we should have that firm conviction that wherever these activities are taking place, Krishna is personally present there. The only condition is these activities have to be done in an offenseless way. Right? In an offenseless way. Right? So that's the point. So even if like an innocent person, not knowing anything, he just calls her, Ajamil calls her, oh Narayan! Immediately Narayan came. I mean, at least Vishnu Dutas came, right? So this is how the Lord is so merciful. Any way you come in contact with Krishna, Krishna is right there. So Prabhupada makes that point. We should definitely know that the Lord is present where any of these 6 activities are actually taking place. And then Prabhupada further elaborates, but that does not mean this. All these 6 activities are there. But how do you do these 6 activities? Can I just concoct something that how I'll remember, how I will worship? No. You have to actually follow. If you really want to see the presence of the Lord in these 6 activities, then you should not concoct it. You should follow in the footsteps of authorities. And the third point that the Prabhupada says, so 3 points, right? One is one should not concoct any process. Second, one should follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas, the Guru, right? In Shastra. And the third point is one should not think that while we are doing this activity, anyway, when I chant the holy name of Krishna, all my sins are washed away. Hence, I can commit unlimited sins. So that mentality that mentality that when I'm connecting with Krishna, I'm expecting something in return. That is actually an offense. So one should not do it in that way. So when you call out for the Lord, connect to the Lord in one of the 6 ways, we actually just do it, for the pleasure of not expecting expecting freedom from reaction of sins, or that mentality of, now the Lord has saved me, I can do all my nonsense. Not that mentality. So Prabhupada says, it is the greatest offense in the discharge of devotional service, that if one commits sinful activities on the strength of devotional service. Okay, so verse clear? Any questions on this one? 6 ways. The Lord is so merciful, so auspicious. Any of these 6 ways, if someone comes with Krishna, Krishna immediately comes and he becomes active in our life, and then he washes away all the reactions of our sinful activity. Okay. Okay. Next, let's go to the text 16.
Vichakshanaya charanopasadanad sangam vyudasyo bhayatom taratmanaha vindantihi brahmagatim gataklamash tasmai subhadra shravase namo namaha.
Hare Krishna translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances again and again unto the all auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, the highly intellectual, simply by surrendering unto his lotus feet, or relieved of all attachments to the present and future existences, and without difficulty progress towards spiritual existence. Hare Krishna.
So now, further having made the point that you can come in contact with Krishna, any of those 6 processes you mentioned. Now, those who are intelligent, what do? Vichakshana means intelligent. Those who are intelligent, what do? They do charana upasadana. They simply dedicate themselves to the lotus feet of Krishna. So those who are intelligent, they will just dedicate themselves to the lotus feet of Krishna. And then what is the result of dedicating oneself to the lotus feet of Krishna? 2 results. 2 results happen. What is it? First result is Sangam View Dasya. All our attachment to this material world, one will completely give away. One gives up all the material attachments. That is the first point. And then, also the word here is Ubhayataha. Ubhayataha means for present and future existence. What does that mean? For present and future existence, one gives away all attachment. Right? So one who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not only in the present, but also in the future, he will be saved from the influence of Maya. Right? If you remember in the Ishopanishad, Prabhupada uses these 2 words. How the Lord, he plays a role like an antiseptic and a prophylactic. Right? So antiseptic means at that time this material infection is there, will be protected by. And prophylactic means that in the future, like particularly the words are Shuddham and Apapaviddham, right? Prophylactic means in the future, we will not be subjected to material infection. Right? So those who are intelligent, they take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, they are protected from Maya now, and in the future, they are actually protected from Maya. That is the first result. And then the second result is Vindanti hi Brahma gatim gata klamaha. This is all what we want, right? What do we all want? Vindanti hi, certainly, progressively, we will go to Brahma gatim gata klamaha without any difficulty. What is Brahma gatim? Brahma gatim means we'll go to the highest destination, go back home, back to God. So those are intelligent. What will they do? Take shelter of Krishna. All our contamination, our attachment to the material nature will get washed away, and one will progressively move without any difficulty back home, back to Godhead. All glories to that supreme, all auspicious Subhadra Shravase Namo Namaha. Like Krishna is actually so merciful. So merciful. Just take shelter of Krishna, and then he'll take us back home, back to God without any difficulty. Okay, so beautiful verses actually. Okay, so Prabhupada in the purport points out that this is actually the most secret part of Lord Krishna's instructions, right? So what is the first level of knowledge, right? First is confidential knowledge. Confidential knowledge is knowledge, understanding that I am Atma, I am beyond this material world. More confidential knowledge is what? When one understands that he understands who is God, right? What is one's relationship with God? The most confidential is what? When one actually understands that bhakti, devotional service, is the way by which you can actually connect to God, and love of God is the highest perfection. That is the most confidential aspect of knowledge. Confidential, more confidential, most confidential. And you see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said, Guya, Guya Tara, Guya Tamam. And what is Guya Tamam? Then he says, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Right? Think about me, become my devotee, worship me, offer obeisances to me. In that way, you will come to me without a doubt. This is the most confidential knowledge, right? Sarva Guya Tamam Bhuya, most confidential of all, right? So that can be obtained by taking shelter of Krishna, by remembering Krishna, worshipping Krishna, becoming a devotee of Krishna. Right? Okay, and then Prabhupada talks about how also the Brahmagati means attaining the highest perfection, how that is actually to get a spiritual form as good as the Lord and then reside in the spiritual planets where we are directly serving the Lord. That is the highest perfection. Going back home, back to Godhead, having a form, a completely spiritual form, and engage in service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is Brahmagati in this verse. Okay. And this, so that is basically this verse here. Okay, text number 17.
Tapasvino dana parayashasvino manasvino mantravida sumangalaha shemam na vindanti vinaya darpanam tasmai subhadra shavase namo namaha.
So everyone today, just this line should be in the back of your mind. Tasmai Subhadra Shavase Namo Namaha. Tasmai Subhadra Shavase Namo Namaha. Right? So all these like 3 verses in a line, the same last line. Okay. So go ahead, translation. This is a verse for memorization also. Who's next?
Vijay Mach.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Shri Krishna again and again, because the great learned sages, the great performance of charity, the great workers of destination, the great philosophers and mystic, the great chanters of the Vedic hymns, and the great followers of Vedic principles cannot achieve any fruitful result without dedication of such great qualities to the service of the Lord.
So the Sanskrit says, Vina Yat Arpanam. So we may do so many things. Tapasvina, we may perform austerity. Dana Paraha, we may give charity. Yashasvina, a great worker of, what is it? Yashasvina, great worker of distinction, like a karma yogi or something. Manasvini, a great philosopher. Mantra Vida, a great chanter of the Vedic mantra. Sumangalai, a strict follower of the Vedas. One may do all these different things. But if all these things are not associated with what? Yad Arpanam. If they are not connected to Krishna, then it says, Shemam na vindati. Then there is no result. One can do all these things, but there will be no result if you don't connect them to Krishna. To that Supreme Lord, who can make everything auspicious. Any activity, as soon as you connect to Krishna, that becomes completely auspicious. To that Supreme Lord, Tasmai Subhadra Shavase Namo Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances. Beautiful, no? So it says, Shemam na vindati. No result will obtain unless you do Yad Arpanam. You have to offer everything to Krishna. Prabhupada makes a point that without dovetailing anything that we do to Krishna, right? All these qualities, one may be Yashasvina, one may be Dana Paraha, give great charity. But if he is not dovetailing this to Krishna, then all these qualities are simply sources of trouble. One say, why sources of trouble? Because Prabhupada explains in the purport that all these activities, one may do austerity, charity, become a great philosopher, do all these things, but if he is not offering it to Krishna, then it is just some form of selfishness. Either it is personal selfishness or maybe selfishness considering the society is mine. But both are forms of selfishness. You know? And as long as we are selfish, how can that be auspicious? So Prabhupada talks about like personal selfishness and extended selfishness. But both of them is actually simply of the same quality and will not finally give any result. One may say, yes, I'm doing so much charity work. I'm building so many hospitals. I'm doing this charity, feeding the poor. But if it's not connected with Krishna, yes, okay, you'll get promoted to the heavenly planets, but you'll come back here. How is that auspicious? It is just like a selfish thing that, oh yes, now I'll become so famous, I'll be promoted to Swargaloka, see how great I am. What is the value of all that? So whatever we do, it will become auspicious only when it is Yad Arpanam. Without that, without that, it says, Shemam na Vindanti. There'll be no fruitful result without that connection with the all auspicious Supreme Personality of God. Okay. And then, that point about Shravase. Shravase is made because that means that this glorious personality of Godhead, what should one do? One should hear again and again about him. Shravase, just hear about Krishna. How glorious is that personality? Okay, let's do one more. And then we can stop.
Irata Hunandra Pulinda Pulkasha Abhira Shumba Yavana Kasadayaha Yinye Papa Yadapashayashrayaha Shudyanti Tasmai Prabha Vishnave Namaha.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Kirta Hana Andhra Pulinda Pulkasa Abhidhira Shumba Yavana, members of the Shara races and even other addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotee of the Lord. Due to his being the supreme power, I beg to offer my respectable obeisances unto him. Hare Krishna.
So here he's saying, Kirata, Huna, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulkasa, Abhira, Shumba, Yavana, all these different classes of people. You know? And here Bhadri Bhagavatam is saying that all these actually represent a low kind of birth. And then further he says, Yanye cha papaha. And all those, even though you may not have a low birth, but they are engaged in papaha. Right? That is basically all the people. Either it is low born or they are engaged in simple activities. Everyone, right? What is the main point? Apashraya Shraya. If you actually take shelter of the devotees of the Lord, right? Even those who are addicted to sinful activities, if they take shelter of the devotees of the Lord, Shuddhyante Tasmai Prabha Vishnave Namo Namo. They can get purified and go back home, back to God. Right? And this is all because the Lord has given that mercy to his devotees. So anyone who takes shelter of the devotees of the Lord, whatever is his background, right? Then he will get purified and he can attain the highest perfection. This is the sweetness of Krishna, right? And the devotees of Krishna. Right? Now one may actually see all these different classes, like Huna. That actually Huna, if you see, it refers to a place, like Prabhupada and Purport talks about each one of these different classes, right? So Huna actually is, Shivram Swami Maharaj actually relates this to Hungary. Huna, Hungary. You see the similarity? And it's actually like, that place. So, Shivram Swami Maharaj actually says that, even Prabhupada, by his mercy, because he's in Hungary, right? So he says, even by his mercy here, there is an entire Vrindavan created, Navbraj Dham, right? Shivram Swami Maharaj manifested that, right? So he says, like, that is the power of a pure devotee. That any place, whatever is your background, it does not matter. You can get purified to the topmost. You know? And there's Andhra, Pulinda, all these different classes. But Prabhupada talks about all those different classes, so I'm not going to that. But Prabhupada makes a very important point that once someone has become a devotee, then one should not identify them by all these different classes. It is only a practical consideration that, okay, he is born from here, he is born of this, and so on. But once one actually becomes a devotee, and if someone identifies a devotee based on their birth, then that is an offense. That's an offense. So Prabhupada in the purport quotes this verse. Acharya Vishnu Shilade Guru Su Naramate Vaishnava Jati Buddhi Shri Vishnu Namni Shabdi Samanya Buddhi. That he says, what is an offense? First, Acharya Vishnu Shilade, to actually consider the deity form of Radha Golokananda to be made of stone. That is an offense. Guru Su Naramati, to consider the spiritual master as an ordinary human being, that is an offense. Right? Then third one, Vaishnava Jati Buddhi, to actually consider a Vaishnava based on his caste, that is an offense. Right? Then he says, Shri Vishnu Namni Shabda Samanya, to consider the holy name of Krishna to be made of material sound, that is an offense. Right? So Prabhupada is saying, yes, all these different categories are mentioned in the Bhagavatam, but once someone takes to devotion, then one should not identify them by their caste, saying that, oh, you are a low-born person. No longer. That is an offense. Why? Because the power of devotion to Krishna is so wonderful that it not only destroys a prarabdha, but also a aprarabdha karma. So all our sinful reactions are actually washed away by the power of devotion. So hence one should no longer consider people based on their previous caste. Okay, and this verse is actually, it's frequently quoted verse, and we like to quote this verse. Why? Because we know that Srila Prabhupada is one Acharya who has actually made this verse, has actually glorified this verse in such an unparalleled way. But Prabhupada is one who actually has gone to Huna, gone to Hungary, gone to Russia, gone to America, gone to all these different places and made everyone a pure devotee of Krishna. That is the power of a pure devotee. So when we read this verse where it says, Yad apashraya shraya, take shelter of one who has taken shelter of Krishna, then for us it is like, this is Prabhupada, glorification of Srila Prabhupada here. Because all these different categories of people have taken shelter of Srila Prabhupada and they have become purified. That is the glory of a devotee of Krishna. That is the glory of Krishna. Okay? Okay, so we'll stop here. And Prabhupada, okay, one last point, I'll just make this. He says, in the purport, this is after that he talks of all the different, in that paragraph starting with the above mentioned historical names are different nations of the world. And then further he says, if the leadership of the world affairs is entrusted to the devotees of the Lord, for which a worldwide organization under the name and style of International Society for Krishna Consciousness has already been started, then by the grace of Almighty Lord, there can be a thorough change of heart in human beings all over the world, because the devotees of the Lord are able authorities to effect such a change by purifying the dust-worn minds of the people in general. What a sentence. What a sentence. And you can imagine how Prabhupada has written these commentaries. It's not just like one purport, 18,000 verses purport. And how many books Prabhupada? Chaitanya Charitamrita full. Each purport has these jewels, And what is the main point Prabhupada is saying? That actually all the world leaders come under ISKCON society. All the governments, presidents, everyone, you take shelter under ISKCON. Why? Because ISKCON is a society where they can come in contact with pure devotees. And by coming in pure devotees, all the nations of the world can become purified. And that is what the human form of life is meant for. And Prabhupada says, the dust-worn minds. A mind is worn out by the dust of material contamination, and all that dust can be cleared out when they come and take shelter on this ground. And Prabhupada says, it's not that we want to become the president. You all become the president, but we will actually become the advisors and make sure that you are ruling in such a way that Krishna consciousness is prevalent. The Prabhupada, through this International Society of Krishna Consciousness, is creating a society of Brahmanas who can guide the Kshatriyas how to rule in such a way that people are not being exploited, and everyone is actually supported in their mission of going back home, back to God. And that is the potency of our ISKCON society, and that is the glories of Srila Prabhupada. Okay. So we'll stop here. Okay. So yeah, so let's stop here. Any final comments, realizations? This is like anyway, I'll end. It's 9:45, so I'll end it, and then if you want to just share one realization, then we'll take that and we can close. Okay. So thank you all so much. Tantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patinam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so please meditate on all these prayers. We covered the first section of these prayers. The second section from 19 to 23 we'll do next week. Okay, so any final comments, realizations?
Prabhuji, my takeaway point is that before leaving the house, pray that I don't please anyone and I make my Guru Maharaj proud.
Yeah, I don't displease anyone. I don't displease the Vaishnavas. I make my Guru Maharaj proud. It's actually a very powerful prayer, so you can always have that. Very nice one. Thank you. Very powerful point. Yes, quickly.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Correct.
Sorry, Mataji.
You go ahead, please.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Anyone who takes the shelter of the devotees of the Lord gets the highest benefit, Prabhuji. Like where we born, it does not matter.
Yes, that is the main point. It doesn't matter where we are born. Actually, everyone in Kali Yuga is a Shudra. By birth, everyone is a Shudra. So it doesn't matter all these names here. But the point is, we can get purified to the highest perfection by taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada and his wonderful devotees. Wonderful. Thank you. Vijay Radhika Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. One point which really stood out is before we act, eat, or speak, we should seek permission from the Lord and pray before these activities. So that is really powerful because we do pray before we eat, but now I realize we also need to pray before we act or speak. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nice. Very practical point that we can implement in our life. Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
I really love the point made by Vijayaradhika Mataji and Vijay Mehta Mataji. And also don't concoct with our material mind, just follow the Guru and scriptures.
Like that point about Kirtanam, Smaranam, Ikshanam, Vandanam, Shravanam, Aranam. All those things, like just so much benefit just by doing those things. But don't concoct this process. Follow the authorities and then you will get the highest results. Okay? Thank you. Vidunoti Kalmasam will happen. Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I appreciated the point about power and sweetness of Krishna, how we have to, unless we appreciate the power of Krishna, we won't be able, the greatness of Krishna, we won't be able to appreciate the sweetness of Krishna, and how both of them are in these prayers of Shukadeva Goswami.
Yeah, and if you see that, I was going to make this point. He actually asked questions about the greatness, right? And then Sukadeva Goswami is offering prayers on the greatness, and then he comes to the sweetness to again make the point that without appreciating the greatness, we cannot relish the sweetness of Krishna. And that's why all these sections of Bhagavatam should not be considered less important than the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. Every verse, every section of Bhagavatam is important. Right? So even personally now hear from all sections of Bhagavatam. Don't be just like, oh, I'll hear only from 10th canto. Hear everything. Right? Okay. Anyone, any last points? Yes, bro.
I really like that. Tasmai Shubhuddha Stravase Namo Namo. So like keep.
Yeah, Namo Namo. Right? We'll all meditate on this. Our prayer will be everyone. In this week, we are all praying today and this whole week. Tasmai Shubhadra Stravase Namo Namo. And meditate on the meaning, how he is the all auspicious personality. Right? Thank you. Okay. Last point, Simran.
Hare Krishna, Guruji, I really like the point that he's praying that devotee prays that remove that effulgence away from me so I can see your lotus feet.
Yeah.
I really
The Ishopanishad prayer. Hiranyam Manyena Patrena. Oh, so much effulgence. But we want to see that beautiful, sweet, smiling face of Krishna. Right? Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Okay. We'll end here. Thank you so much for your association. Thank you. Thank you so much. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. everyone. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna, devotees, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much. Hare
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Pranam.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, thank you so much for such a enlivening class. So many takeaway points. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.